and we're walking with our suitcases to like a cafe, and a guy on his commute with AirPods in is just like walking down the street, and he walks by us and he takes a pod out, does not stop walking, and says, "Listening right now." Pops it back in and just keeps walking. That's my favorite fan interaction ever.
Welcome to another episode of Around the Bar. It's a show where I invite someone on to have a drink and a chat. Today we are joined by Aiden Quit. I believe that's how you say it, or Aiden Calvin on the internet world. He's a tournament organizer, Melee fanatic, he's a creative, he helps with merchandise, and he is one of the 4 co-hosts of the incredibly successful podcast called The Yard. All wonderful things. It is very unfortunate that he also plays Sheik though, so. Today we are drinking Mogul Moves, which consists of ginger beer, vodka, lime juice, and we also put some limes in there. We also have just launched a Patreon to help fund the show. The Patreon will include access to 3 additional shows, one being Behind the Bar, that serves as an extension of the Around the Bar podcast. Any support would be so incredible, and it would help the show continue to move forward. So thank you for watching and enjoy this conversation with Aimen Gamin. Welcome back to another episode of Around the Bar. Today we've got my man Aiden. Cheers. What are we drinking?
Cheers.
What are we drinking today?
Mogul Moves.
Mogul Moves. Is it a go-to for you?
Yeah. I feel like this is like one of the first mixed drinks I tried that I really, really like. So it just came to mind right away, you know?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Austin, we got Austin back. We got Matt back. Matt just came back from a super special, super secret location.
Yes, sir.
That will be revealed soon. Do you want one, Matt?
Maybe in a minute.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
How's the flight down? What do you have going on in your life? You're all over the fucking place and you've had a crazy couple of years.
Yeah, you so graciously flown me out to this. I actually didn't know that you would do that, by the way. I honestly just assumed. Fuck. I was just like, oh, I'm doing his podcast. Yeah, it's in a different city. I'll book my flight. I'll figure everything out. You could have totally
that's
done
the thing
out.
Is it's every time I hit someone up, I'm like, hey, like, would you like to be on my podcast? I'd love to talk to you. And then I let it breathe for a little bit, and I'm like, I could find a way to get you down here, and then that happens. So I'm glad you're here.
I think it's a bigger ask for different people, you know? Like, they have different expectations. But for me, I was like, yeah, fuck it. I've never been to Dallas before. You've
never been to Dallas?
Dude, I've never been to Dallas. I've only been in like the Houston airport. I've only been to Austin, which I've heard is not Texas.
No, it's not Texas. It's LA.
Yeah.
It's LA in Texas.
Yeah, so this is my authentic Dallas city experience.
Shit.
Here.
I've taken you to Chipotle.
Yeah.
And here.
I'm living it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're
that feels authentic to me.
Real Mexican food. Chipotle.
But you flew me out, dare I say first class, basically, because I flew out for some reason on a gigantic Boeing 777, and then I paid $90 to upgrade to have more leg room. And I had a full lay down, like, international business class seat and a meal and, like, good service the whole time. I was like, dude, this is a 2.5 hour domestic flight.
We try our best out here.
Yeah.
And by that, I mean, we get extremely lucky by somehow getting you on the... I was, like, picking out your seat, and I saw there were so many chairs. Many...
When I paid, because when you usually, if you upgrade on like a small flight, all it means is like you get like a slightly wider seat and like more leg room.
Yes.
And that's all I wanted. I just wanted more leg room so it was easier to sleep.
Yeah.
And then I upgraded the ticket and I looked at my seat and it said like 15A. I'm like, dude, there's no way row 15
it's still
like,
first class.
Did they fuck me? Like I just paid for my upgrade. Surely they give me my ticket correctly. It's like, oh, maybe I'll have to talk to somebody at the airport. Like, why is it like this? And then I opened up the seating chart. And I'm like, dude, this plane is a massive.
Dude,
it's like
I don't know why. For how long is the flight? 2.5 hours?
Yeah. I have no clue.
I don't know, but whatever.
But it was full. It was like, oh, they packed it. So whatever. A lot of people need to go between LA and Dallas, I guess.
That is so funny. That is so funny. So we've got a lot to talk about. I think you and I are similar in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to like organizing events. I think that's probably our biggest similar, or that's what I thought. And then when I hit you up and I was like, dude, I'd love you to have you on the podcast. And you said, yeah, we've actually met before.
Yes.
So you have not had a chance. I didn't want to hear the story until now.
Yes. I thought this would be so funny to bring this up. When was it? It was in at the CDL Champions Anaheim or something like that. It was when it wasn't called MLG Anaheim anymore.
CWL.
CWL.
Okay.
In like 2017, I think. 2017 or 2018?
Okay. Probably 2018.
Yeah.
Probably.
And
yeah.
the reason I wanted to go was because at that point, I had finally been working in esports, like officially for like a year. My first esports job was at a company you might be familiar with called Smash GG or Start GG now. So that was my first real like esports job. And because I kind of like finally settled in to like working in the industry that I wanted to work in a long time, I was like, let's go back to MLG Anaheim because that was like where it started for me. Like MLG Anaheim 2013.
Yeah.
Before Smash was there, I think it was Call of Duty, StarCraft, and League that year. And
yeah, probably.
I went to Anaheim that summer because I was in a club in high school called Future Business Leaders of America.
Yes.
And the national event for FBLA was in Anaheim in the same convention center as MLG. Very conveniently the same weekend, just in a different convention hall.
And you're coming from where? Seattle?
And I'm basically coming down from like Washington. I lived in like a small town on the border of Washington and Canada.
Okay.
So we raised money in our town. Like we went like door to door raising money so that our team at FPLA could go to Anaheim.
Right.
And then in my head, I'm like, I'm going to MLG as soon as I get down there. I bought my ticket. And instead of going to like any of the business things you were supposed to go to that week, I just spent the whole week in MLG.
That's insane.
And I was so psyched because I had never been to an event like this. Like there's like 20,000 people probably in that building. And I think the League crowd, I was familiar with like competitive Call of Duty. And I knew that competitive League like existed, and I was playing League at the time. And I think what really sold me, because I was like watching, I want to go watch Call of Duty. I'm watching like Optic play, who I was a fan of at the time. Like watching like the vlogs and like the videos that each of like the members of the team were in. I think it was Big Timer, Merc, Nade, and Scump on the team at the time. So I was like a huge...
It's my favorite team ever, by the way. That's my favorite team.
And it's Black Ops 2, and it's like so exciting. Like everything about the scene was like so interesting to me. And then I think the League crowd was probably like the biggest and the loudest at that event, because I think it was like right when League was like really starting to hit its stride in terms of like popularity. And I remember being in the crowd at that event watching League and being like, the energy is unreal in here. Like this is a real thing, and I could like organize events. I could like be a part of this somehow.
How old are you?
I'm 16. And
crazy.
This is like what I could do for work, because up until then, it was like I'm going to medical school. Like that is like that's the goal. I'm going to be a doctor one day.
Okay.
And then I went to MLG Anaheim, and I was like, actually, esports.
Actually, League of Legends is better than Doctor.
Yeah, it's better than Doctor. And then I told I was telling, after I got back from this trip, I wanted to like a few months later, I wanted to like officially tell my parents that I want to like pivot my career path, because for a longer-winded reason, I was starting college at the time, and I was like, I made a little like PowerPoint presentation for my dad to like convince him that this path was like legitimate, basically. And like which was boiled down to League better than Doctor.
League better than Doctor. That was the name of the PowerPoint.
Yeah, that's the name. That was the Excel, like the file name of the PPT.
This is like before Google Slides. It's like actually you load up PowerPoint.
Yeah, I had to get the USB out and everything.
It's so funny.
And so talking, that was kind of what set esports in motion for me. Is like I knew competitive gaming existed, but wanting to work in esports was because of MLG Anaheim. Before Smash, like before I was playing like anything particularly competitively myself,
right.
I played competitive Mario Kart Wii at the time.
We'll talk about that later.
Yeah. So
we have to talk about that.
That was the only game I was like playing seriously up until this point.
Yeah.
Which obviously does not have an esports scene. Like that's a more insulated,
right,
small.
Right. How big? Sidebar. Don't lose your track.
Yeah.
How big is that scene?
Like now?
Yeah.
Like probably like active players. There's probably like maybe like 1,000 active players.
That's still something.
Yeah,
that's still something.
It's
yeah,
like
yeah.
you can match make and like play solo queue at like any time of day.
Oh,
if you want
wow.
To. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, that's very impressive.
And it's a very, very cool game. It's the melee of Mario Kart.
That's I keep hearing that.
Yeah.
When I say I keep hearing it, I mean I've heard you say it like 15 times. No one else has said it, but you've said it.
I have the evidence. If you put me on trial, I can back this up.
Okay.
But that event really put it in motion for me. And then going the following year, because Melee made a return to MLG in 2014.
Yes.
And I had gotten into Melee by that point. So MLG was just this like really foundational event and experience for me that made me want to get into it all. And coming back that year, I was like, it was only Call of Duty at that point, right?
Right.
It's a Call of Duty focused event. I wasn't even really that into Call of Duty anymore, but I was like, I would like to go by myself to this event because I think it would be a nice thing to like return to and just be at.
Okay.
And I went that weekend, and I knew who you were because you had like moved into the house. You had made videos or like worked with Optic for a while. And at this point, because I wasn't following as closely, like I didn't know a lot of the specifics about you, but I knew that you were into Melee because you had tweeted during Genesis about how sick Melee was.
That's so funny. Yeah, it sounds like me.
Up. Yeah.
Something about Mango probably.
Yeah, it was. It was like after Mango Leffen, I think, at one of the Genesises.
Okay.
And then I went up to you and I just introduced myself like I think pretty like brazenly.
Right.
I think and I basically just tried to explain like, hey, like I'm just here. I'm really into Melee too. Like I just wanted to say hi, and like that was kind of the end of the interaction. You were like polite, cordial, like we met, shook hands, and then the interaction ended. That's all it was.
Okay.
But that was the first time we met. Was
so funny
at that Call of Duty event. And this is funny because I pulled this up. I wanted to go digging for this photo, and it took me a while to find because it was buried in an old Twitter archive. I have a tweet from January of 2018 from me that says @Optic Hitch. Hey man, experienced Melee TO here. Was wondering if you guys have someone staffed to run the tournament in June. Would love to help out. I was the head TO of Don't Park in the Grass, if you're familiar. just ghosted.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
What event are you even talking about here?
This was the first Optic event you guys did. Not the
Optic
off-season.
Arena.
Optic Arena.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes infinitely more sense.
So I don't know what the politics was at the time.
It was not good politics.
Yeah.
So that makes sense why I didn't reply. I'm sorry.
No, that's totally fine. I just thought that was funny because I found that tweet.
That's so funny.
In the process of looking for this photo, and I can send it to you after.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a photo of me at MLG Anaheim 2013. I'm 16 years old in my business suit, and that's all the Optic guys.
Oh my God. It's so on from left to right. It's Big Timer, Diesel, Hector, you.
Yeah, that's me in the middle.
And then Matt, Seth, and Joe.
Yeah,
that is crazy. That's 2013.
That's 2013. I'm 16 in that photo. And something funny that happened that weekend was at the event, because I'm 16. I'm a future business leader. I have unbounding confidence.
Right. Yeah.
And I just went. I was staying in the same hotel as like all of the, a lot of the players and teams and stuff like that, right? Hector and Diesel are at the bar one night, I think with like Fizz, and they're in like the lobby bar. And I went up to Hector, and that's, the same evening I ended up getting that photo to introduce myself. And I said like, hey man, like I'm really, it's really nice to meet you. Like big fan.
Yeah.
I'd really love to like work in esports one day. I'd love to do like anything I can for you guys. Like I'd love to be like an intern or something in the summer. And then Hector, like, very, responded like very positively to this at the time, and like was very polite. They asked me a bunch of questions, introduced me to everybody at the bar, and like that's how I got the photo. And
That's
then
crazy.
and then gave me his email. And then later in the weekend when he saw me again, he introduced me to the people he was with, and he's like, "This is Aiden. He might come work for us this summer." And I remember this. I remember this very clearly because I'm 16, right? And like I've basically like, oh, dude, I want to work in esports because I'm at this event. And then it's like I'm making connections and
and like you're doing it.
I'm doing it already.
You're already halfway there, and you're 16.
Yeah, and I'm psyched. And it's Hecz and it's Nate Shot and like all these people I know. And then to his credit, especially as someone who has been in basically Hector's shoes
on the other
for a
side
few
of it.
years now.
Right.
It was like a lot of people reaching out to me for like opportunities or like more recently in the past year, it's probably been more like fan orientated. But even before that, like as somebody who was running tournaments and like found success in esports, like a lot of people reaching out to me about like jobs and things like that, right? And so to see like how challenging it is to like cordially interact with people like that, and like not because it's not that they don't necessarily deserve an opportunity, right? It's just you're inundated with so many people who want that opportunity, right? And he took the time to like be so kind to me that weekend and treat me like with respect and give me an honest reply, give me his email. And he even responded to my email like after the weekend was over, which I was surprised by. And I asked him to write.
He responded to your email?
Yeah, I was like, "Hey, I'm applying for like an internship at Riot. Could you write me like a recommendation or something?" And he followed up to that.
Wow.
He didn't end up writing the letter of recommendation, but he followed up to the email and said like, "Yeah, like what exactly do you need from me?" And I think as a dumb 16-year-old at the time, or a dumb 17-year-old by then maybe, it was like I didn't have enough like direction in my request for him to actually do anything. That's what I've realized as like years have passed.
Right.
But one of the reasons why I wanted to go back too, which was nice, is at the event in 2018 that I met you at. I bumped into Hector again, and he, of course, does not recognize me.
Right.
Totally understand. But I was like, "Hey, I want you to know that like talking to you that weekend gave me a lot of like confidence to pursue working on this and like joining the industry." And at that point, I had. And he was like, "Oh," and he was like, "I bet you went and did it." And I was like, "Yeah, like, I did. And like here I am. And I just want to say thank you very much." So it was nice to like briefly reconnect with him in that way. And that's kind of my whole like MLG little journey with everybody, and
that's
a little
so wild.
My Call of Duty connection.
I'm obviously that's amazing to hear, especially in the Optic headquarters that we're at right now, but also myself especially, and I guess probably Hector as well, don't always have the best track record of first impressions. So when you said, "Yeah, I've met you at an event," my first thought was, "Oh shit, what happened?" But that's mostly on the videographer side. I was a videographer for a little bit, and they all make fun of me.
Yeah, if you meet him holding a camera, it's different. You know?
Yeah, apparently I'm a dick. I just have to put the camera down. Just come up and talk about Melee, and then I'm like, yeah.
There's people that have met me while I'm stressed the fuck out TOing, and I'm sure I have not left the best impression.
I'm sure I have a lot of those as well, and I don't ever notice it until, or I never notice it at all until people meet me years later.
Yeah,
and they're like, "Yeah, by the way, like we've been friends for 6 months now, so I feel like I can tell you this. You were like a massive dick the first time I met you," and I was like, "What?"
Well, I don't know if you had this experience with Nick, maybe because you already knew each other. He's just maybe not a massive dick. Nick just comes across as very like standoffish to people initially.
Yeah.
And I think this often does not reflect his actual opinion of the person. But I did find this out the first time that I really got introduced to Nick, like the first time I ever met him. I did find out years later, after living together and being like one of my best friends, right? That he didn't like me at the time. So it was funny learning that. Like it's like, dude, you didn't like Nick didn't even like me the first time.
That is so funny. Yeah, that's funny. I always make fun of Nick because I'm like, "Yo, you grew up a FaZe fan, like #FaZe, spends not wins and all that." But I'm now you apparently were an Optic fan.
Oh, I was an Optic fan.
So
I
it's
was
just
a
like
green wall. #green wall.
That's so funny. After all that, and now you just make fun of Juvie on the podcast now.
Oh, 100%. Because come on, man. There's just no way it was your dream as a kid. He said that. He said that when he announced, no 6-year-old is dreaming about making an energy drink company.
Oh my God.
I believe it when he said it more recently. He basically said the exact same sentence, but about the Pokemon merch collab they just did at 100 Thieves. And I was like, you know what? I believe that.
You believe that?
Because that's a thing that a child would want. That's a thing.
Oh, you're saying a 6-year-old.
A 6-year-old wants Pikachu on his T-shirt. The 6-year-old's not thinking about starting an energy drink company.
Okay. Yeah. It makes sense now. It makes sense why you guys lay into him so hard. Because I got in trouble with Nate a couple months ago for a podcast that we did. So I'm a little bit when I have a microphone in front of me, I'm a little on his bad side right now. So I'm trying to lay it back. So I'll let you do all the Juvie. You do all the Juvie roasting. I'll say, I think whatever you're doing is great.
Nate, I've been a fan for a long time, and I've got the proof.
It's like you have a proof.
I've got the proof. No, I think there's a bit of light roasting because it's funny. It was really we just thought it was super funny to talk about Juvie all the time.
Yeah, no,
and how it gives you kidney stones.
That's insane.
But
I was wondering if you were ever going to invite him on to defend himself, but I don't know.
At this point, name might not come on.
It's got to be hard to be. I know we're jumping forward a lot talking about the yard, but it's got to be hard to be a guest. You have to be I'm sure you have to be a certain person to be a guest on the yard.
Absolutely.
Because you guys are ruthless. Y'all are ruthless to each other, which is why it's so successful.
Yeah, I think that's definitely why. I think you can tell. I think if anything, and it's been reinforced over time, but my belief at the beginning was I think it will show how good of friends we are, and I think that's why people like it.
Yeah,
I think like there's a real. I think in comparison to a lot of other podcasts in the space, which is not necessarily their fault, is like two people who are like kind of friends or like basically good terms coworkers in the space of like YouTubing or streaming.
Right.
We'll be like, what if we did a podcast together? Because we like hanging out, we like chatting.
Yeah.
Let's get this together and we'll just do it.
Right.
And a lot of people decide to do that, and it's because it's like 2 or 3 famous people that decide to come together. It's like the initial viewership at least will come.
Right.
And I think we were kind of the opposite, where only one of us really had a significant following, and that was Ludwig. And it rested heavily on the dynamic we just had between us as friends and as people.
Yeah.
And I think people really enjoy that. And I think that's like the primary reason people listen to the show.
Oh, for sure. It definitely, I said this a lot when Nick was here, but it feels like you're at the lunch table with your boys.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure is like obviously the driving like reason that a lot of people listen to the show, but does it ever come with the other side of it where people are a little too comfortable whenever you first meet them?
Oh, with fans?
Fans of the show or listeners of the show.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Or there have been enough situations where that's the case, but I think we also have complained so much about these interactions that it's also been conditioned out of like the remaining fan base. Because I noticed it was more prolific at the beginning of the show, like when it was first breaking out, and these types of weird, like there's a really early story on the show where I went to Sweden and I hooked up with a girl at a bar who was like, she was a bit older than me. She was like 7 years older than me, 8 years older maybe.
Okay.
And the meme.
I didn't know we were bragging, but okay. No, it makes sense.
The meme was that Aiden sleeps with like gilfs from Sweden and has a child there or something. Which is one thing that doesn't line up. But that was like, and then people would come up to me and be like, "Yo," like and that's just like that's not.
Yeah,
me. Like I'm a very like tepid guy about these types of things. I would say.
Yeah.
And I was like. This is a very exaggerated take of like what actually happened, even from what I'm telling on the show,
which is already a stretch.
And it's like I don't want to like dap up fans about like a hookup I had, right? I just wanted to tell the funny part of the story to my friends, and like, and I think there's a lot of like comment like little yardisms and bits of like language that have like really seeped through our friend group,
right?
that people have just like adopted, or like versions of our persona that people used to bring up and like joke about in these interactions a lot.
Right.
And but that's like definitely changed. Slime has probably led the charge on that. Slime has definitely cultivated a culture of fear around fan interactions.
I feel like there's the yin and yang that you need in order for something perfect to happen, and you guys have 2 yins and 2 yangs, and it works.
Yeah.
And in all different scenarios, it works pretty perfectly. I don't know. You guys, I think you guys have, I mean, I've said it multiple times. You guys are my favorite podcast. Listen to damn near every episode. And it's just, it is that part of it that's just so, you sit down and you listen to it and it's so effortless. But as I'm listening to it, having dealt with, you know, people that are a little too comfortable when it comes to the COD team, or they're like, you know, they sit and they watch the boys scrim for 12 hours. So they're like, you know, like in their mind, they're like, oh, these are my boys. Like,
I'm a part of
the team, which is a great thing. You want that feeling, but you don't want people to come up and slap you on the butt and say, you know, good game and stuff. If you're not on the field with them, you know,
it's a very natural social reaction, I think, for a person to like kind of feel that way, because you do have a very personal and unique window, especially through streaming specifically, into like somebody you're a fan of in their life. But I do think that we are lucky in that we crafted a culture that has kind of combated that. Like it's always, ever since Ludwig made that video about like being parasocial, he has like a famous YouTube video he made.
Yeah, the friend one, right?
Yeah, I am not your friend.
Yeah, okay.
I think that's like it became memed to such a point that it's such common knowledge within like Ludwig adjacent spaces that I do think that, plus the general way we talk about negative fan interactions, has led to people being really positive in person. Like I almost have, it's really, really hard for me to have a bad interaction with a fan.
Really?
Which is nice.
That has to be nice in comparison to when it first started.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And they weren't even bad at the beginning. They were just like
comfortable.
They were more weird more often.
Yeah. Because I'm sure like if Slime and Nick are roasting you about something as a friend because you've known them for years, it's a lot different coming from them than it is coming from some random person.
Way different. Way different. Yeah, absolutely.
It's got to be a thin line to walk too, because that being said, if somebody's walking down the street and they see Slime and they yell "pussy boy" at him,
he'd be so livid, dude. He'd be livid. Yeah.
I don't know. It's but the thing is I can see myself coming from like in the fans' eyes. I can see myself being like, oh, there's Slime, yelling "pussy boy" at him across the street would be funny. Yeah,
you want to be funny, or you want to. All that person wants is to make that interaction like stand out and like be special and like receive some acknowledgement from the thing or the person they care so much about. Yeah. So I understand what it's like rooted in, right?
Yeah.
I will say my favorite fan interaction ever was we went to Australia like a year and a half ago for a Smash tournament called Phantom. And while we were there, me and Nick are up really early in the morning, and we're trying to get a coffee like in the central area of Sydney before we go to the airport. And we're walking with our suitcases to like a cafe, and a guy on his commute with AirPods in is just like walking down the street, and he walks by us and he takes a pod out, does not stop walking, and says, "Listening right now." Pops it back in and just keeps walking. That's my favorite fan interaction ever. Yeah.
That's really crazy. On the other side of the planet, too.
Yeah, it was just like, oh, that's insane. You're just listening to us on your morning commute right now.
That's got to be cultural. That has to be cultural.
We do have a disproportionate amount of fans in Australia, I've noticed.
Really?
Like we have a higher... I think Australia is like a crazy percentage of our listener base when you consider the amount of population they have. It's very interesting.
And Nick said you guys have one 40-year-old mom that listens.
Yeah, we do.
Okay, so she's holding it down for the moms.
Yeah.
And then Australia, and then probably California guys.
We do have a small group of like women over the age of 30 that talk a lot in our Discord.
That's so funny.
Yeah, it is very funny because it does not line up with our demographic at
all. I just imagine the kids getting in the car and they just turn the volume down.
Yeah.
It's like, you can't hear this right now. Yeah. I will listen to the rest later after I've dropped you off. That's cool. Well, it's cool to hear you talk about Optic. I like I said, I had no idea.
Yeah.
I don't. You know, I kind of assume, which isn't right of me, to think that if you're in esports, you've at least heard the name Optic, but I would never have thought that you had a picture with the fucking original Optic House team. That's crazy.
Yeah, I didn't even know about Melee yet in that photo.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Matt, can you do me a favor? On the left drawer over here, I put 2 things in there. Can you grab them for me? Ooh. So, in the last podcast, I was playing a lot of Call of Duty. Is the hat and the glasses.
Ooh.
So in the last podcast, Nick Yingling.
Yes.
I was playing a lot of Call of Duty with them. They said that Call of Duty is like the baseball players of COD or of esports. Yes. They wear snapbacks and they have Oakley glasses. So here, I would like to gift you.
Oh wow!
I would like to gift you a snapback and a pair of Oakley glasses.
I'm officially a Call of Duty player. What do you? Oh, what was his? What's that guy's one? What was his gamer tag? Was it Killa?
Killa, yeah.
Killa always had a hat like this, bro.
I like that.
Killa always had a hat like this.
And the Oakley glasses, and I have to take a picture.
Yeah. Ghost killed the game, bro. Ghost killed the vibes.
And there it is. All right, Melee, you've had him long enough. He's back.
Time to make my grand return to like fucking gold in league play.
To gold. That was as high as you got?
Yeah, fucking Nick is always talking about, we used to make multiple accounts to, we'd see how fast we could hit master over and over again. And I was like, yeah, man, I was definitely doing that.
I was doing the
too.
same thing.
And I think I literally peaked in gold. I think I might have made it. Was there a plat the next rank up? But
I can't even remember.
Yeah.
You don't feel the need to. You can take those off at any time.
It's a little dark. But you know what? That's not. What do you?
Oh,
you do this thing. Yeah.
The backwards.
Yeah.
I forgot about baseball.
Yeah, the baseball thing where you put it on the back.
Yeah. You put it like this, and then you say "bruh" a lot.
Yeah.
And you talk about women.
You got any chew?
Any dip?
Yeah.
So if COD players are the baseball players of esports, what are Melee players?
Oh, oof. Are they sports players still?
They can be whatever.
They have to be
like theater kids.
Maybe like theater kids or maybe like cross country runners. No, it's got to be something that people like passively view as kind of cool still, but like not actually. You have no social credit doing it.
Really? Oh yeah. Okay.
In the broader school ecosystem.
I think theater kids is good because, Brad Pitt's a theater kid.
Yeah.
But he's also the coolest guy.
Oh, true. And like Troy Bolton was a theater kid.
I know who that is, probably.
And then he was the star of High School Musical.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
I knew that.
And he has to pick what is he? He doesn't have to choose at the end, right? What happens at the end of High School Musical 3?
Matt?
I swear
he's Googling.
I swear he picks a school and then gets to do both or something. Like he's going to Duke to do basketball and theater. Like
that's what High School Musical is about?
Dude, the whole conflict in High School Musical 3 is that he has to choose, and then the end resolution is like, actually, I'm not choosing.
At the end of the high school, Mrs. Darbus reveals that both Kelsey and Ryan have won the scholarship, and Troy reveals he has chosen to attend the University of California to be close to Gabrielle, play basketball, and perform in theater. So you're right.
I haven't watched this movie in a long time, but I remember being angry as a young person because I was like, the whole conflict of the movie was fake. He could have just chosen to do this from the beginning.
You wasted 3 movies of my life. Are they about the same? Are all 3 movies the same characters?
Yeah.
3 movies of my life for a choice that didn't end up happening.
Yeah, I hope they broke up.
Yeah.
I hope they broke up and he got kicked off the team for smoking weed.
It was like Game of Thrones, the first, the original heartbreak. Like it was all leading up to this one moment,
and then they botched it at the end, right when they went to theaters too.
I actually am just learning now that the High School Musical conflict is theater versus basketball.
Basically, yeah.
Which is good. I mean, I feel like that's a common. That's a common thing that it's either band or soccer. It's theater or football. It's you chorus or whatever.
Yeah, you have to pick between the two for some reason.
Yeah. You have to, because you get to a point in high school where you got to do one or the other.
I guess you gotta you kind of got to lock into one at
you
one
can't,
point, right?
You can't hike the ball and throw it for a touchdown and at halftime go perform in the band.
No.
You can't do that.
Because you don't have enough time. Your teammates are calling you gay. It's just
for being a quarterback. Yeah, you're already waking up at 6 a.m. every morning to go.
You're hitting weight room.
True.
But you're also watching Hamilton on your phone.
Yeah.
And it's just like, what do I do?
Trying to figure out pre-algebra all at the same time.
It's tough being a high school student.
Yeah, it's traumatic. It's so much easier to sit at a bar and drink and talk to people.
I'm good with this.
All right. Well, I'm glad you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You can definitely keep them.
I'm glad. I feel a lot cooler.
You do?
Now. I feel.
Get you a mitt.
Yeah.
We actually did a. I think we're. Are you good?
I'm good for a refill.
Oh yes, let's go. Aiden said he's 1 down, 5 to go.
Oh, I have to make up for Nick.
That's another thing I was going to ask. When it comes to the yard,
yeah,
two of the and Slime has blue balled me a couple times for coming on. He wants to come on, but then I hit him back up, and then he never responds, and then he responds out of randomly at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday.
That checks
and he's
out.
like, "Let's go," and I'm like, "All right, cool, let's do it." And then you don't hear back from him, so he'll be on eventually. But he doesn't drink either. Nick doesn't drink.
No.
What's it like being on a half and half sober, half not sober pod?
Extremely easy, I think, because we've done a few. You might have seen we've done a few substance episodes.
Yeah.
And the dynamics. I think the dynamic's kind of good because me and Ludwig do the thing,
and then they watch,
and they keep it in check. Like it's because the mushrooms video could have gone worse, you know.
I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah,
I haven't seen it.
We did a mushrooms episode, and me and Ludwig are on mushrooms while we podcast.
Like microdose?
No.
Like,
it was like it wasn't a lot. We took like a gram.
I have no idea. Is that a lot? Is that a decent amount?
No, it's like a normal, like low end. It's like a normal dose, but on the lower end.
Okay.
You're not gonna like freak out on a gram.
Okay.
But you might have a challenge podcasting.
And was it hard to pod?
A little harder, yeah. It was definitely harder.
Thank you, awesome.
But it was really fun, and we've done. Thank you, and we've done. We did like a weed gummy episode, and then we've done
an acid trip.
Jesus Christ. I have thought that would be funny, but I don't know if I could do it. I don't know if I can talk enough.
Oh! You can't podcast on acid.
Yeah, I think.
But you've done acid.
Yes.
How was that?
It was good. It was cool.
What? I don't really have interest in drugs or in heavy drugs, except for heavy drugs. Mm-hmm. Is that the right thing to say? Heavy drugs?
Heavy,
hard
would be the term. Yeah.
Hard.
I don't know. I'm definitely not a drug endorser in that I wouldn't tell you to do it if you weren't absolutely comfortable with. I'm a pretty like conservative guy with like trying things like this.
Right.
Contrary to me doing it at all, I guess.
Yeah.
And I think I do it like I spend a lot of time reading and asking questions and like test
Before
kits.
doing it.
Doing it with like friends who I'd talked to a long time and like ask them a bunch of questions where they get it from. Like I'm a very boring, nerdy drug user, which is probably what you want to be.
That's what you want. That's what I would want.
Yeah.
The only one I'm even interested in is it Molly? Is Molly ecstasy?
Yeah, it's just.
I want to try that. I want to try that. You want to do that, Matt?
Yeah, sure. Run it. Yeah.
This is not an endorsement. That shit's tight.
That sounds so much like an endorsement.
No, you gotta be careful. It's very important to be careful. And I want to I don't like talking about drugs on podcasts without like adding a bunch of asterisks to it. You know?
Add the asterisks.
Because I don't like the idea. It's like, I trust myself it's like, I waited until I was like in my mid-20s to try things. I'm so meticulous with like how I've tried everything.
Yeah.
I'm very careful and thoughtful. And I don't want to like say like Molly's dope. And then some kid like goes and tries something in a dumb way and gets like fucked up because of it. That makes me sad to think about. But I do think that if you take all this safety steps and make sure that you're being safe, That was pretty tight.
You 100% should do it now, is what you're saying. As long as all these things are in order.
If you're above the age of 25 and you've spent
Yeah. Because I just turned 24, so before I turn 25, I've got to try it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I believe that.
Which one? Which part?
Oh, that you're 24.
Oh, okay.
And you're coming up on 25.
Yeah. Yeah, I got to try it.
I have so much more wisdom than you.
You do.
Wow.
You've been, what's it like?
It's tough. It's tough to synthesize. One day, I'll give you my little how to run events handbook, and then you'll learn so much.
No, you're an incredible TO and organizer and producer of events.
You are as well. You did amazing events.
Oh, thank you. And you've started working, like you said, Star GG, and then went into Summit, and then for a little bit there. No, I know you're not doing it any longer. You're the lead event runner for all of Mogul Moves and Ludwig's events.
Yeah.
Which one was the most rewarding out of those?
Doing so when I was working at Smash GG and before that as well was when I had my own company called Endgame TV, and it was my brand that I did a bunch of events under during like the years I was in college, basically.
Right.
And probably the biggest project we did. So we did a bunch of regional events like all over the country.
Right.
That tournament in Australia I mentioned, Phantom. I actually founded that tournament. So the first.
Oh, really?
Like the first two iterations of that.
That's not the one where they use like the paper icons, right?
The paper icons?
Yeah, like when you take a stock.
Oh yeah, that's Fate. That's in the UK. That's in the UK.
Okay.
Great tournament. I had nothing to do with that one.
Okay.
I wish I did.
Is that super side note, super niche? Is that built into the game or is that part of the OBS, like the broadcaster?
That is
the paper icons.
The paper icons. I think I want to say it's built into the game.
Yeah, they probably like.
They just replaced like the in-game assets with the paper ones that they made.
Trying to think for next year.
Yeah, but you can do stuff like that. It's super super.
As
cool.
long as Daddy Nintendo doesn't come down.
Oh yeah.
But okay, all that aside, are you about to tell me thou shall not park on the grass?
Yeah. Don't park on the grass. That's the project I'm most proud of. I ran two of those. In 20, here I'm just gonna.
You can just. You kept.
Sorry.
I
kept thinking that they're gonna stay, and then.
Yeah, you have to be a certain level of tool for them to stay.
I know.
I don't have it. You don't have it. Matt probably has it.
If you get me enough dip, they'll stay.
We can go to 7-Eleven, grab some snooze.
But don't park on the grass was like the national I ran, or like the major. And 2016 was the first one, and it just got a lot bigger than even I had planned. Like the goal of that tournament was to host a tournament that was like 600 people, because at the time I was running like regional events that were between like pretty much like between 300 and 400 every time. I ran a series called Emerald City.
This is in Seattle? Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then and Emerald City was probably the next biggest thing I was like running at the time. And the progression to me was like, let's take this from regionals and let's run a national in Seattle, because I think you can do it here.
Wow.
And 600 people goal turned into a 1,200 person event.
Jeez.
And I did not really, I had a very small team. I was individually in charge of like way too much. I was very bad at delegating.
I can imagine.
I was 19. I think I'm the youngest person ever to host a gaming tournament of more than 1,000 people.
It has to be.
I'm pretty sure.
I don't know how old. I'm trying to think how old like Adam and them were when MLG started.
It had to be older than 19.
It had to be older than 19, because that's the only person I can even think.
Yeah, because it was like Halo 1, and that was 2001, right?
Oh.
Yeah, but they're.
And Adam's like mid-40s, yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, it has to be more. Yeah.
They have a dope origin story, by the way. Always, I've never met Adam or Sundance or like any of those guys, but I always thought have my respect, you know.
And they're the best. Yeah. They, like I said. We went to lunch, so there's probably an overlapping conversation where the cameras didn't catch, but like esports kind of started in two different ways. It started in computer games like Counter-Strike, League of Legends, and then also console games, which is like the MLG side. And as far as the MLG sides, like Adam and Sundance and they Sepso, they made like they made this whole thing happen.
It's so cool. It's so cool.
So keep going with the park on the grass. Don't park on the grass.
Yeah, that just came into existence. It was so much bigger than I had planned, and the first one was so stressful. It was
I can't even imagine.
It was brutal. It was probably like one of the worst periods of my life.
Got to be traumatic in a sense.
It was. It was probably the only time in my life where like I think I've always been like a really good student, and that quarter of school is I was doing school. I was taking the most credits and the most classes I ever had at once, and then I was working while doing that for the first time. Like I had my first real full-time job, like it was part-time. I shouldn't say full-time.
Right.
It was, and then I also had this tournament that was turning into its own like full-time job, and you're
not getting. How much are you making from these
tournaments?
No,
I'm fucking nothing. I actually did make money. Like some of my tournaments technically were profitable. Like I would make like a few $1,000s, and but I would just instantly spend that on the next event. I would just use it to like pay, because I didn't really care about money at the time. I was like, I'm paying, honestly, irresponsibly so.
Yeah.
I just wanted to spend money to like make the next tournament like as cool as possible from my perspective.
Yeah.
And for me, a lot of that was flying out international players. Especially at the time, there was a lot of talent like outside of the U.S. that nobody ever talked about or like gave any credit to. And I was just like, if you fly these people to events, you can have like somebody who is maybe top 50 in the world and nobody's ever heard of, and they can just show up and win. And I think that's really exciting. Okay. So I started reaching out to like a lot of European players specifically, and I was like, hey, if you want to come to this event, like I'll pay for your flight if you just want to come out. And then I would do that for years. And there's a bunch of European and a couple, like one player from New Zealand that like got ranked on the top 100 because I flew them to events and they got enough data to like get ranked for the year.
Oh wow!
And I was doing that in college. Like that's pretty much what I spent all of my money on. So, and you might remember like Crush too, like Crush or like Fat Goku or Cyrox. There was like these up and coming like Fox players.
Okay, I think I remember the Cyrox.
Yeah, and we sponsored them as well. So it was like flying them to other tournaments.
Okay,
and that's kind of what the profit went to.
So whenever you fly these players out, is there anyone that you took a risk on flying out and they performed super well and you're like, yes?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think I got pretty good at picking people in the sense that it was pretty obvious if somebody was particularly good and that if you flew them out to like the right event, they were going to do pretty well. Like I think a good example of this was Spud, who was the best player in Australia.
Yeah, he played at the offseason last year.
Yeah, he's fucking amazing.
Yeah,
right?
He's insane.
And nobody knew about Spud. He was like he's only like set that American players knew about is he beat Alex 19, one of like Mango's friends, at a tournament in Australia, and he was. After that tournament, it was like, this guy's arguably the best in Australia. He's like one top 100 win. And I was like, this guy is clearly something special. You can tell by the way he is playing the game that nobody thinks and plays about the game in this way. If he just gets a chance, he will do really, really well. And he did. So he came to the second Don't Park in the Grass. That was one of the tournaments that I helped him come to. And that's a tournament, 600 entrants. There was like a ton of... like 600 melee entrants, a ton of talent in the top 100 there. Spud got 5th. He like 3-0'd SFAT. He 3-0'd, or like he beat Hecz. He just beat a bunch of people at that tournament, and nobody really knew who Spud was. And I think that was what made it special to me. Is like I can give this person who's played the game a lot, deserves an opportunity, give them a chance. And then everybody else is like surprised and like gets to experience something new and be like, who is this guy? Right. And I get to be the person who made that happen.
Of course.
And I really, really loved that, especially at the time. So that was like a big focus at Don't Park in the Grass and like these other tournaments I ran.
Who won the two Don't Park in the Grasses?
The first one was Leffen.
Okay.
Leffen won the first one, and then the second one was, I want to say it was S2J.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so they turned out really well. I think that first one, like you were saying, it was a very stressful experience. I think after it was all over, like my finals week was the week leading up to the event. Like it was just, dude, it was just awful. Like I crippled my GPA. Like it was, and then all of like I was so stressed all the time for so long, and then because finals and work because of like Christmas break, and the company gave us that time off, and then the tournament all ended on like the same day in December. So it was like. All of a sudden, it was like everything was like quiet, and I just didn't know what to do with myself.
Yeah,
and I was just so sad for like the next 3 months because I was like just in this state of like I want to go, like I'd feel lonely, and then I'd go like hang out with friends, and as soon as I got there, I'd want to leave. And I just didn't know what to do with myself. I don't know if you've experienced something like this before,
dude. The first off season, myself and Atlas, who like does everything for TST. He's like, who does everything for the yard? His name's Otto. Does a bunch of stuff for the yard.
Oh, Otto does a lot of stuff for Ludwig.
Ludwig. Yeah. Okay, so he's like, Atlas really likes Otto a lot, and he just like wants to do what he does. So him and I work together on a lot of stuff, like anything that basically I'm involved in.
Yeah.
And so we built out all of the off season, the first one, and the producer that works here. His name's Corey, and he built the Run a Show. Mm-hmm. And it was basically the three of us just trying to figure out how to do it. We had budget for something, and I was like, they were like, how do we split it up? And I was like, dude, I think we put it all towards Super Smash Bros. Melee. And they were like, what? And I was like, trust, like they will love it. They'll love it. It's not as good. And then we get the COD guys involved and stuff like that. And it was just such a far-fetched idea. Like we get all these retro games, put them all together, and we kind of simulate what used to be MLG.
Yep. And
it's all for charity. It's just, it doesn't, and I was like, and then in the middle we do a Pokemon box break, and then there's a bunch of weird shit that goes on in the off season, and it was just nightmarish to set up. Yes. Especially with no precedent, with no no one had ever done it before, and we had never done it before. We couldn't pitch sponsors on it because they didn't understand it.
Yep.
We had no VOD to go back on, and then trying to convince the DFW Melee scene to sign up, and or to convince DFW was easy, but to convince other people to come is extremely difficult, even though it's such a high prize pool. So it was just, dude, it was so, I mean, we talked about a little bit about this at dinner or at lunch, but it was like 3 or 4 days a week I would wake up like mid-nightmare.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, something went wrong. So like, I forgot to put the auction items up. I forgot to do this. I forgot to reach back out to the sponsors. I got to see how many attendants we have right now. And dude, and then it's over.
Yeah, and then it's just over so quickly.
And then Monday, AMSA lifts the trophy, and then Monday comes.
Yeah.
And dog, I don't think I recovered for like 3 months. I think it was 2.5, literally 2.5 to 3 months.
Yeah.
My relationships were different with different people.
Absolutely.
I felt like I had a purpose for 3 months, and then I had no purpose at all.
100%.
It's the craziest feeling.
Your relationship, I think the relationships part of it, dude, I hadn't thought about that in a while either. It's like that's a huge, you lose like touch with certain people, or if you have if you're dating somebody, I think it like really the person I was seeing at the time when I hosted the first one, it like totally fractured our relationship.
Yeah.
Like it was the catalyst for like it falling apart,
really?
For sure.
Yeah.
And I think in hindsight, it was something that, probably would have, ended anyway. Right. But it was something that like definitely tore us apart because of the amount of like stress it was putting into my life. Because I'm like not even me anymore in a way, right?
Right.
But on the other hand, it's like that's all you are, and you want to complete the goal. You want this project to come to fruition because that's why you pursue something like that. And then when it all goes away, I think it really sucks away your feeling of like purpose for a bit. That's how I felt. It was the first time I went. First time I like went and talked to like a therapist like at the end of that, and just took like a walk-in appointment at like a clinic on my campus, and it actually was like the thing that was the beginning of like things turning around from it. It was just like really getting it out and like talking to somebody, which was really nice.
That's insane. Yeah.
But it was also, dude, in hindsight, I didn't even know what it was, but I realized like years later that I had like my first anxiety attack like during like the build up to the event.
I can imagine.
And I was like, I didn't know what was happening to me. And it wasn't something that I dealt with in any frequency like after the fact either.
Yeah.
So I didn't really have like a good frame of reference. And then I realized finally, like a long, long time later, that I was like, oh dude, I had an anxiety attack.
For sure. Yeah.
And I think it's weird because on one hand, I think I miss it. In a funny way. Like I think I miss feeling that driven about fucking anything. And one thing that a friend pointed out to me recently that I really appreciated, and then we were sort of talking about when we got lunch, is so I only ran one more Don't Park in the Grass, and it was it was a really nice event to run in a sense. Because I could take everything I learned from like the first one and improve upon it, and that it was very stressful. But it was much less stressful than the first time, and it ran a lot better, and it was a product I was way more proud of. And I think because I got to iterate and do new stuff, and it was like the culmination of all my experience at the time that like made something. It's like I did it again, and I did it better, and I'm like way more proud of this project. But I think once I did that, I lost my train of thought a bit.
I also have to say, Don't Park on the Grass is like the best name. It's such a good name for an event.
I wish I came up with it. I really do.
Such a good name.
It was like it's like a Washington Melee like meme or like ethos. It basically there's this famous house in Washington Melee called the Tuck House, and it's in Tukwila, Washington, which is on the like south of Seattle. It's I would say famously a rough area, like a lot of murders.
I don't know what was. I didn't know what was coming, but I wasn't expecting murders.
This is like it's not known for being a nice house or a nice city.
Murders, okay.
And but that
you were murdering foxes.
Unfortunately there was a lot more than foxes being murdered in Tukwila. Still.
Okay.
But there was this house on the top of a hill in Tukwila that there were weekly Smash tournaments at, and that a bunch of Smashers lived at. And like a lot of prolific Washington Smashers lived in that house over the years. And like people would come and go and like move in and out. But the house is on top of this hill that's like mostly grass, and obviously it rains a lot in Washington. And when it rained, the grass would get really like muddy and loose. And because they hosted all the time, either like fests or tournaments like week after week for years and years, right? They would have every time they posted about Tuck Fest or the Tuck House like local in the group, they would add "Don't park on the grass" at the end of the post, because if you parked on the grass, it would fuck up the lawn and the hill, and the landlord would get mad at them.
That's incredible. And
this just became so prolific that I was like, this is just a good name for a tournament, and that's what I decided to name the event.
That's so good.
Yeah,
I love it. I love like the storylines of how these, of how like names of tournaments and names of anything really come together.
It's a cool reflection. I think something truly unique to Smash is how, because the local scene and this idea of like house fests and house tournaments became so well known, especially because the documentary talks about the first big tournaments like being held in a house, right? This idea of being in a house, playing Smash with your friends and packing out every room and every floor with CRTs, like people naturally in college would like form these smash houses that were, you know, grimy and disgusting and had fixed CRTs in like every part of the room and like setups on all the time. But every city that had a smash scene can kind of tell you about their version of this house. Like in Bellingham, Washington, it was like James Street, the James Street house for a while. And in the Washington on the whole, it was the Tuck house. And then Nick could tell you about like the Pomona house that he lived in.
Is that the McDonald's Bags house?
Yeah, that is the McDonald's. No, the McDonald's Bags house might be the balcony. The balk.
I don't know.
Because there's another famous SoCal house called the Balcony, which was like the home of like Project M in SoCal for a long time. Okay. And all of these houses have extremely, or the Poop House in Arizona, or the fucking. Or Alston Melee's place in the Northeast, or so many places and regions have their own version of this fucked up house that's like filled with bongs and beer and trash, and it's fucking dirty, but we all meet up there to play Melee all the time because we couldn't play online. You just went, even in like fucking, it's like everybody else is playing online games because it's fucking 2015, 2016. It's not like the internet didn't exist.
Right, yeah.
But you couldn't really play Melee online. And at least not very well.
Yeah.
And so this was just part of the culture. I think that was a big selling point of the documentary, is like it attaches this like call to action in its message, which is like, here's this community around this like great game, and it's special, and you didn't know it, and this whole scene exists, and we're all friends because of it, and it happens in tournaments, in hotels, in garages, and like... And that's what you can come be a part of. And I think that's why the first documentary hits so hard, is like it tells this very human story about like come be a part of something like very unique. And I think that was the main reason why I wanted to get into it at all, is because I watched the doc and I was like, I'm fucking sick of playing video games in my room. That was like my thought. Okay. I was like, I'd rather go play in person with people. And that was like the big thing for me.
Dude, that documentary, man. That documentary has probably changed so many lives.
100%.
It's weird to think that a YouTube, because it hits so many different ways. Like it's an esports documentary, but it's an esports documentary about people that invented esports, not knowing they were doing it.
No.
There's no way Chillin' Dude knew what was going to happen with esports while he's setting up an event and he's 11 years old or whatever.
No.
And it also set up that how big of a platform YouTube is. Imagine if that documentary went out on DVD.
Like, it just doesn't go anywhere.
It doesn't go anywhere. They sell a couple copies. One person's like, dude, I remember watching this documentary on a burned CD one time. But like YouTube, I mean, it was when YouTube really started popping, and then esports started popping, and then they realized there's this niche little group of people that have already such a dense history.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's 2014 when the documentary comes out. And it already had such a dense history, and here we are.
10 years later, basically. I went to because I watched the doc like at the end of 2013, and then went to my first tournament in December 2013. So my 10-year anniversary of competing was this past December. And I was like, dude,
and you're a doc kid.
Yeah, I'm a doc kid. I'm as doc kid as it gets. Yeah. The documentary was recommended to me by YouTube, like on my homepage.
Yeah.
And like that's why I watched it. I was just like, it said the Smash Brothers, and the thumbnail was really bad. It was like it was just like a shot of like a house. You couldn't even see video games in it.
Nope.
And I was like, is this about like the game? And I just decided to click and look.
Yeah.
And then it was, and then I watch it, and now here we are. And I think the funny thing, thinking about the history of the game back then, is there were already people that had been in the scene for like, 2 to 4 years who had kind of gotten in the last little bit before the doc came out.
Yeah.
People like Toph, for example, or Vish, I think got in that era.
Right.
Like the 2009, 2010 era, I want to say.
Okay.
And for me coming into the game at the time, right? It's like in my mind, those guys are old school. They're pre-doc, right?
Yeah.
And I'm that guy now. Like I'm a 10-year-old veteran of the scene, which is weird to think about because it's not how I see myself. It doesn't feel like that long ago.
Yeah, I feel the same.
With COD, right?
I feel that way in COD, but I also feel that way in Smash. Because it's gotten to a point, I just resubbed to Mango for 75 months. And I was like...
It's a good way to measure your fandom.
75 months? And I remember being like, like, yo, I'm really like that. I was like, I always fuck with him. Like, I'm really like that. I'm 75 months in. And he was like, man, fuck your 75 months. Like, I'm sure there's someone else in here that's over 75. And like no one else, everyone else. And so like a bunch of people were resubbing and they were like 30 months or like 25 months. And I'm like, dude, I've been watching for a long time.
That is so long.
That is so like there's a lot of people nowadays that are watching Melee that never saw Armada play.
That is really weird to think about.
That is insane. That never saw Mewtwo King play. Never saw.
No.
I mean, PP. I was.
If you got in during COVID, you didn't. Yeah, you just didn't watch those people play.
And most likely you'll never see them play legitimately.
No,
to a point where they're grinding for months and months and months at a time. Hey guys, before we continue the podcast, I just want everybody to know that we are on Patreon. That is how we are funding the show from now on. So all the Behind the Bar episodes are moving over to Patreon. Those are already uploaded and available. We also have 2 other shows for some patrons as well. One is the Coffee Bar, which is basically a weekly podcast with myself. And then we also have Relationships 101, which is an old classic that is coming back. We have Discord access in there for Around the Bar, listeners, which is also offers early access to merchandise, upcoming guest sneak peeks, and also some user submitted questions. So if you guys like the upcoming guests, you can submit your own questions. We have tons of other perks as well, and it's all listed down in the description. So any support would really mean a lot. It would help us, get some other guests in and fly them down and drink and talk about stuff. So hope to see you guys in there and enjoy the rest of the podcast. I mean, it's weird. The only event I've ever been to is the last event that PP won, and then like.
Oh wow! Yeah, Apex.
And he pretty much has been, taking time off since then.
Yeah,
it's weird. It is weird because you come into a scene and you're like, I'm the new kid. I want to learn everything, and now you're teaching motherfuckers everything. You're teaching people everything.
Yeah, it's weird to come around the other side.
Yeah,
and realize that I'm that person now.
I wonder. I wonder what all the people in the documentary are up to now.
I know. It's funny checking in with people because most of the people in the doc have some sort of connection to like an existing person that's still in the scene.
Right.
And so you can kind of there's people who can just give you little life updates about those people, which is really nice. I think it's in the last episode of it, and there's an Australian smasher who gets interviewed in it named Chaotic, and he has this really beautiful like minute and a half long speech that kind of like closes out the doc about like why we all play.
Yeah.
And it's probably the most like it's the moment of the entire thing that has stuck with me the most. I think it has a very strong emotional resonance.
Yeah.
Because it's like barely about Melee. It's just about like we get together and we do something cool and we know each other from all over the world and we have this thing in common and we do it because we're friends. And I was like, and I think it makes me emotional.
Yeah.
Because I think about it's like fuck yeah, like that's what I wanted and that's what I went and did and that's what all these other people got to do too. I used to have this thought that was like that moment in the doc is putting up all these like pictures and Polaroids of like all these people at tournaments and all these friends and all these good moments that they've had over the years. And then it was nice to think about how getting into it then was this choice I made in my life, and a bunch of other people made a choice in their life too. And they made all those memories for themselves.
Yeah.
And that was like the important thing that came out of it. And also what I try to remember a lot is like portions of the scene maybe are like maybe annoying or negative and like there's those things that I don't like about it right now. I try to remember that like these in-person scenes and friend groups that still exist now that you can go be a part of still are like the reason why we all went and got involved in the first place, and it's still there. And I really like that.
Yeah. I mean, it is, you know how like the Pokemon, the first movie, when Mewtwo goes on that rant and it's just random, this funny, there's little monsters in these little balls and Ash is trying to catch them all. And it's just this funny little kids game. And then out of nowhere, the main villain, or no, it's Meowth. It's Meowth that says it. One of them says just the most like profound. I don't know the actual. Can you look up the actual quote? It's like the most profound thing. And I remember being a kid and being like, "Oh my god, like what the hell is that doing in this movie?"
It's Mewtwo, right? Isn't he talking about like molding your own purpose in life or something?
Maybe that
and it's like, yeah, it is like a really profound emotional moment at the end of the movie.
Meowth is the one that's talking whenever they're slapping each other.
Yeah,
I think that's what it is. But yeah, I think you're right. It is Mewtwo. I just didn't want to fuck it up, so I overthought. But yeah, that is kind of how I view a lot of the last episode of the documentary.
Yeah,
wife, like he starts the dude. It's
wife is perfect.
I've talked to Sandbox and he's going to come on, and I don't know how many people are going to watch that episode, but it's literally the whole reason I got into esports is that documentary.
Yeah.
So I cannot wait to talk to him. But like how he crafted it, where I think in the first episode, wife goes, "What do I think is Smash? Like all of you want me to wrap up all of Smash?" Yeah. And then he never wraps it up until the last episode.
Until the very end. Yeah.
And then the last episode, he goes on this beautiful monologue.
Yeah.
Smash let us be somebody. And he's interweaving it with the chaotic one.
Yeah.
I mean it is so good. And it's at the core of it, if I go up, I've tried to get my girlfriend to watch the Smash Brothers many times, and she's gonna hate me for saying this, but she always falls asleep. Yeah. And I'm like, but actually, no, that is not true. She used to fall asleep, and then we got to a wife interview, and she was like, "I fucking love this guy.
He's awesome. He's the most like compelling part of it. He tells it so well. I've watched back his. There's an uncut version of all the interview footage of wife. And I just went back and watched that. And it's like basically equally as compelling. Yeah. Because like everything he summarizes about it is so, it just brings such an energy and like a narrative to whatever he is talking about, whatever the situation in like the scene was. And then he wraps it up really, really nicely. He's one of the main reasons that doc is like so compelling. Dude. Like if you don't have a lot of the wife quotes in it, I think it's just, a lot of it just doesn't hit as hard.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason that wife is like the thumbnail on the 4-hour version.
Oh yeah,
it's like just a picture of wife. Yeah. It's so good. It's. Did you ever find the quote?
Is this what you're talking
about? Yes.
Yeah.
I see now that the circumstances of one's birth are irrelevant. It is what you do with the gift of life that determines who you are. Fucking Mewtwo said that. Fucking in the middle of a kids movie.
Yeah.
Says the most profound thing ever. And that's kind of how I feel about all of the documentary.
Yeah.
It's just, it is at its surface is about a game on the GameCube and how a bunch of crazy people play it.
And thinking about when you said how many lives it's changed, it's like not just the people who chose to get into Smash, right? You're talking about like it was like your initiation to esports in a way, right?
Oh yeah.
And then I have a friend, Andrew White. I don't know if you know him. He used to work at TSM for a long time, then 100 Thieves. But Andrew's the same.
Mm-hmm.
He found the doc and like Melee first before he worked on League or anything.
That's wild.
And then he got a job at like TSM and got involved in League, and but Melee was his introduction to like his career.
That's
right?
crazy.
And I think there's a lot of people like that. It's like
there's so many.
And from Samox's perspective, right? I wonder. I hope he knows that he made like a real transformative piece of media. I think there are not a lot of videos or like even documentaries that you can say like truly changed the trajectory and like landscape of so many people's lives.
Yes.
Dude, Ludwig might not even be fucking famous.
I didn't even think about Ludwig.
If the documentary didn't come out. If it had not come out. I wouldn't be where I am. We wouldn't have the yard. Like we wouldn't be friends. This is how
there's no Scar and Toph show. There's no editor for that. There's no yard. There's no summit. There's so much because Melee had died.
Yeah. It was in a rough spot.
Died is harsh. Mm-hmm. And anybody out there that's not a Melee fanatic like you are and like I am sort of would say it's dead.
Yeah.
You know, Mario Kart Wii is not dead. We won't say it's dead.
It's in a rough spot.
But it's in a rough spot. And that's kind of, but if somebody makes a 9-piece Mario Kart Wii documentary tomorrow that gets 40 million views, who knows what's going to happen? And it was just so, I remember watching, so I had been an MLG fan forever, and then I had watched the documentary, and the only person I knew of was Mewtwo King. So I was just watching to wait to get to Mewtwo King's episode. And then while I was watching, I just fell in love with the whole storyline.
Yeah.
And then I remember, I think it was Puckett had like a special MLG show and was like, yo, we've got some people on that were in this documentary that we're going to that we're going to talk to. And
That's
it was
so funny.
It was Wes, and Wes is the Samus player, right?
Yeah.
It was Wes, and it was like maybe HBox. It was a couple people like that were in the doc. Wife was there, I think. And they were just like playing and talking.
Yeah.
And then they were like, we're making this show just to tell you that it's coming back on the circuit.
That's actually crazy, man.
Yeah, I don't even know if that VOD is. I don't know where that VOD could even be. But I watched it live.
It'd be tough to even find it, right? But dude, it's funny because Puckett is in the documentary too. He's like in the MLG clips and stuff. Because I was excited seeing that, right? Because I knew who Puckett was. I didn't know who any of these guys are, but I knew who Puckett was.
Exactly.
And I was like, dude, that's Puckett.
Yeah. There's like, I think Sundance is in it as well, like interviewing fucking Ken. Yeah. There's a picture of Chris. It's him sitting outside like the back of convention centers. And it's just like there's like a delivery place and like trash everywhere. He's there, and it's like the whole final boss Halo team, and then like a Dota team or something behind him, and then PC Chris. And it's such a random picture, but it's so good. I'm just like, that's esports.
Little moments of esports history right there.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Like where's Wife? Where's PC Chris? Where are all these people? Like, I wonder if they all know. I hope wherever they are, they know how much of an impact the piece of media that they were so like
integral to.
Yeah. Like changed so many people. I know.
I do too. Yeah. I really hope. I think. Yeah. All I can say is that, like, it changed literally changed my life in the most concrete of ways. So.
So you said earlier that you're you get emotional thinking about or in a couple parts of the documentary, and you are a guy that wears your heart on your sleeve.
Yeah, I heard I'm getting bullied by your friends for crying on the show.
Okay.
Yeah,
I don't know if you.
No, that's fine. I have no shame.
Whenever you meet Blake and George, which you will eventually meet them, you'll understand.
Yeah,
they're assholes. They're great, but they're assholes.
No.
And
the thing I thought of this earlier, but it's relevant to this. But that episode where I talk about competing.
Yeah.
I knew you liked our show after that episode because you tweeted about our show.
Oh, it's like the best. It was like the best episode I've ever seen.
You said this is the best podcast in gaming after you'd watched that episode.
It was because I'm I only listen to the show. I don't ever watch it. Because I mean, I drove you here and it's like 30 minutes drive.
That's what
30
I do. If I listen, because I listen to most episodes back, I just listen.
Yeah.
And I don't watch it.
And so I'm listening, and I didn't, I wasn't even familiar really with you guys' faces at the time.
Yeah.
I could just, I was just listening like it's a radio show. And I can, you guys are talking about how Nick's in a cape and he's wearing a crown, and they're all talking about it. And then you hear your voice start to quiver. And I'm like, what? This guy's he's not about to cry right now, is he? And then you do, and you're talking about how like there was, to set the scene for anybody that doesn't know, there was a company-wide Melee tournament, and you guys all trained for it, to compete for it, in a side event at a major.
Yep. Yeah, at Genesis.
Yeah, Genesis, which is like COD champs, basically, if anybody's listening from Call of Duty. And so it's as if like my TST, the Nuke Squad, and a couple other like content teams, or even like within the office here, we all set up 1v1s and we trained hard for it. And it's just on the surface level, it just seems like a fun thing that everyone's doing.
Yeah.
But you wanted to win, and you took it extremely serious.
Yes.
And then when you didn't win, it hit.
Yeah, absolutely.
And dude, I've never related to something more in my life. I've just been like, and your voice started quivering, and I'm like, oh my God, Slime and Ludwig are about to lay into him. That was what my thought was.
Yeah.
Because Blake and George, that's what Blake and George would do to me.
Yeah.
And I remember telling them about it. Like, dude, you got to see this part of the podcast. It's incredible. Like, it's such a different dynamic of like friendship than what we have. And so I go to show them. And I can only bring up the video. And the video, as you start to tear up.
That's so funny.
As you start to tear up, fucking, what's the name?
Subway Surfers.
Subway Surfers. Yeah. Can you look up that part of the pod? I don't know. Do you know what episode? I don't even remember.
Man, if honestly, it might come up if you just search "The Yard Aiden Cries." It might just come up.
And then Subway Surfers pans over, and as you're getting emotional, there's a Subway Surfers like.
Yeah, we talked about adding that in after. I thought it would be funny.
Oh, okay, so you were point on that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't mind that at all.
It's so good.
It's this clip. Yeah.
It is this clip.
But yeah, it's like when I start to explain myself later.
Like, just hover over the top. That is so. And as he's talking right now, like his voice is like quivering, talking about how you're talking about how like you trained really hard and this is what you really wanted to do, and it's not that, you're not sad that you lost. You're just sad that or whatever. You're like talking about all of your emotions. And Nick is in a cave. Nick is in a cave, and it's so good. It like this is like when I was like, okay, the Yard's special, because it's not just four guys that are laying into each other all the time and bantering all the time. You guys are genuine friends.
I think when we need to have a hard conversation or be vulnerable, we're there for each other. Yeah. I think the constant like berating and like making fun of each other and like riffing, that's obviously like a huge part of it. That's like the core of like not only the show but also a part of like being friends. But I think in that instance, like I had no fear of them really like making fun of me in that moment.
Really?
I knew
I would never in a million years
ever
open up to Blake and George ever.
That's sometimes that's just not the case with certain people. That's totally fine. I do, but I was really, not that I was super, I wasn't worried or like ashamed that I cried. It was like, it was a real emotion. I think there's still big parts of the emotion that I felt at the time that are like present now, but I don't, I was worried because it was such a tonal shift of the show. So like if someone is listening, my little fear was like if people listen to this and it's just like not what they want or like what they expect from the show, which is typically like friendship and funny and like
goofy,
and goofy. But that is the most positive feedback I've gotten to anything I've been involved in the show. The amount of people who like pretty much every comment is about people dealing with what I'm talking about, talking about like competing in sports in school or something or some artistry that they practice. Everybody has like a version of this if they competed in like anything. If they had any sort of competitive facet in their life, there was like a connection to what I was talking about, I think. And that made me feel a lot better. I also definitely the most personal messages I've gotten from friends about the show after that episode.
From that moment.
Yeah, because there's like a handful. Not every personal friend of ours listens to our podcast. Totally understandable. But there are a lot of people that do. And I think there's also a lot of friends that listen that we don't even know that they listen. They just like...
They just like it, yeah.
Yeah, they just like it and they just don't bring it up with us and that's totally fine. But the amount of like DMs I got from friends that I like hadn't talked to in a while after that episode made me feel really good. I was really happy that I shared that in that because I didn't have any fear about sharing with my friends, just sharing over that medium to the audience. And to see the degree of like positive feedback I got was like crazy to me.
Oh yeah.
And
I mean there's probably people relate. Actually, definitely, it's not probably. People relate more to what you're talking about there than they do to a Kobe Bryant speech talking about losing or a Kobe Bryant speech talking about winning.
Yeah.
Because that's a stake that's unbelievable.
Yes.
You have to train your entire life, dedicate everything to get to this championship, to win the biggest championship in the world. And then if you fall short, that's got to be a different level of heartbreak. You're talking about you're talking about competing against your friends.
Yeah.
And competing, really driving yourself to be where you think you can be.
It's a very like personal but simple dynamic.
Yeah.
And and that's what it boiled down to. It was like this expectation of like, I think like this feeling of others not believing me in that context.
Yeah.
Of me feeling like I believe in myself. That's all I need.
Yeah.
And then letting myself down. And then also doing it against this like friend I feel like I'm always measuring myself against and like trying to catch up because he's so good at everything. And that's what it feels like.
Who is this?
This is Nick.
Nick, okay.
Because Nick is really good at a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And like being unable to keep up with Nick at the same thing, at the things that we share and that we compete in like mutually.
Yeah.
Is hard because I think he just learns and he gets better at things faster. Like he's like really creative. He's really funny. Or like we both played Valorant. He got like a lot better at Valorant faster.
Yeah.
And these games that just didn't click as like fast for me. And it was it was a really big moment. It was a really big moment for me. I think the way I would describe it is like it's not because and I think you probably understand this by like listening to the whole segment.
Yeah.
Is like it's not that it's like it's not about the company tournament. It's not even about like winning. It's not about winning. I don't care if I'm the best at the Mogul Moves company tournament.
Right.
It's about the test and the moment and like collapsing and like failing in that moment that you've practiced and like built up towards so much.
Yeah.
I think the reverse of this actually is I'm practicing and playing Melee like a lot right now. That's like my main like competitive output at the moment. And it's been more or less my main one for like a long time with like some breaks intermingled.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of people, that might be fucking running or lifting or theater and like Troy Bolton when he's grinding his theater and
basketball
and basketball. He wants to be the best at both. But that's so many people in school, in college, in life, in their career. They're trying to chase and be the best at their craft and like and for me, at the moment, I feel like my main way of doing that is like competing in Melee. And I've been working on a lot of stuff. I've been like practicing like way more than I usually do, and I'm getting a lot better, which has been really nice. And I've been like working with a coach. And
you've been getting coached in Melee?
Yeah.
Oh,
it's dope. It's really, really fun, and I'm having a great time. And more recently, there's an assortment. I've played so many sets over the entire time of me playing, but I had one of my favorite wins ever recently, and it was against this Puff player in SoCal. I think their tag is Turn, and Turn's like a pretty good player. I would say like on a streak of like recently good local results and stuff. Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't say like from an outside perspective, like nobody who's like outside of like consistently attended SoCal Melee would know who Turn is.
Right.
I'm not playing like Mango.
Yeah.
I'm just playing another like pretty good player at the local. And thank you.
Thank you, man.
And
changing of the drinks for the audio listener.
During the set, there was this moment in the third game. We're in the last game, and they're up by quite a bit. And I had this moment where I was in 9 times out of 10, especially in this matchup, in this situation. I've played it so many times. This has happened so many times. I just crumble, and it's over, and I'm gonna lose. And I basically like buckled down and like stuck with my game plan and was like, if I do X and X, he will not hit me for the rest of this game. Like I will be able to like overcome this situation that is like so difficult and like I've failed in so many times before. And I won the set and like popped off. And I think like from an outsider perspective, even for someone who's like watching at the local and might know who this player is, this set doesn't even make sense why I would like pop off. The stakes are low. I'm at a local tournament. This like wasn't a big match, but for me, there was so much like personal weight in that moment that was like overcome, and it was like this very individual victory for me. Yeah. And it doesn't really have to do with like who's controlling the character on like the other side of the screen. And that was like the opposite type of moment of that moment where I cried. It was like these are like in that moment I failed. But in this moment, I overcame the challenge finally. And both of those have so much more emotional resonance than any other times in like me playing Smash. And I think they because it has to do with like all the personal build to those moments instead. Yeah. And that's what I wanted to try and like communicate when I was talking about that on that episode, because it's not about the company tournament. It's about like all of the like social dynamics that like lead to this moment. Yeah. And I think that's what makes it relatable, because Melee is like irrelevant to that equation. Melee is just like the medium for that emotion to be expressed. Yeah. But people experience these things across everything that's competitive in their life.
Even if it's not competitive, any goal-oriented thing that you can make towards yourself. Because I think I struggle with this a lot. I think trying at something is terrifying.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I mean, this podcast is a great example of that. I mean, I worked really hard on it, and then when I went to get my first guest, I was like, holy fuck, the whole thing might fail. You know what I mean? I also, the reason I enjoyed that segment so much is because I've thrown a lot of retro COD tournaments. So it's like COD tournaments on the Xbox 360 from games, 10 years ago and shit like that. And I've done that a lot. And there was the last one I ever threw, it'll be the last one I ever throw for Modern Warfare 2, the game that came out in 2009. It's like my favorite game ever. My favorite game to ever exist. I've played that game more than I've played any other game ever in my life. Yeah. And
fucking dope game.
It's such a good game. Yeah. And we're playing in an old school tournament. It's myself, Blake George, and Scump. And obviously we have a bit of a hard carry. But
one of those guys is a little different from the rest.
Yeah, George. George is so good. So it's the four of us. And I remember telling Seth this, and he was so bewildered that I felt this way. But we get all the way to semifinals. We win. We beat people we should not be beating we're beating like current pros. Mm-hmm. People are like, how are you beating current pros? I'm like, well, I played this game way longer than they did. Yeah. It's just kind of like it'd be like if you played Ultimate Pro in Melee, you're probably going to beat them.
Oh yeah.
And it's the same thing.
Absolutely.
And so we make it all the way to semifinals, and we are up 2-1 and we're about to win. And you just capture the flag, so I'm running the flag back, and then Clayster beams me, and they return the flag, and they capture the flag with 1 second left. Yeah. And they tie it, and then they win it in overtime, and then they win the next game and we lose. Dog, I don't know if it's so stupid. It's a throwback. It's a charity throwback tournament for $2,000. You're getting, the winner's getting $150 each or something like that. But it broke me, dude. It broke me for like 48 hours. I couldn't
sits with you.
I couldn't play. I was like, I've dedicated damn near my whole life to this. Mm-hmm. And we mess up one rotation, and Clay gets one shot, and he's the fucking one of the best players in the world. You know what I mean? Like, it just killed me. And if I ever said that, especially the Call of Duty community, they're ruthless. Yeah. If I said that to the COD community, they'd be like, who cares? Like, that's not no one's caring about you in a Modern Warfare 2 tournament that's happening in 2020. And
absolutely.
It's like, but that's not what it's about. It's not
what it's about.
It's about like how much you love what you're doing, and you're dedicating so much time, and then you just fall short. Yeah. And so while I'm watching that episode, that moment is replaying in my head, and I'm like, that's how I felt. and I talked to it about Blake and George. They were like, I can't believe like they cried or whatever. They're saying this to Nick, just joking. Yeah. And And I was like, bro, do you remember the Modern Warfare 2 tournament? And they were like, that's different. If you had cried then, we would have understood. And I'm like, it's the difference between a team game and an individual game. Like Melee is an individual game. You have to put it all on yourself.
Yeah. I think that's...
it's a lot of pressure.
I think the dynamic between team and individual games is really interesting because it applies to sports too, right? I think in team games, you have this added weight, especially if you're the person that you know like failed in a particular moment, that you've let your team down. And I think that feels really, really bad. And I think for the average team-based competitor, right, the easy thing to do, especially in solo queue and like duo queue, is you can just pass off the blame to other people. And like that's like it's like your security blanket in those situations is like you don't have to take as much ownership in the small stakes situations, but I think in the highest stakes situations it feels so bad to let other people down.
Yeah.
In Melee or in single games, like I've talking to people who like play tennis or maybe like chess, the having no room for excuses and having to accept full ownership of the mistakes is like a really, really challenging thing to deal with. And I think it's something that pushes people away from competing in individual games. I think that's like when the learning curve is tough and you can only like put the blame on yourself. I think it's a little harder to stick it out at the beginning because you can't just siphon off the blame to like other people.
Yeah.
You're getting owned because you fucking suck.
Or they're using Sheik, and Sheik is so cheese. That's
you don't like my character? You don't like my character? We got beef? Fucking, that's Slime. See, Slime never lets it end, dude. He's always talking about how Sheik's broken. Fucking. But I think that's an interesting dynamic between the two experiences is like
for sure.
the full weight of performance on yourself at all times in individual games, and then in team games the weight of failing your teammates.
Yeah, it's why you never see people drop out of team games. You see dropouts happen all the time in individual games. Like it happens all the time in Melee. It happens in chess. It happens. I don't know if it happens in tennis, but
doing it, you can't do that.
You can't do.
Right? If you're a cornerstone of your team and they're relying on you to like do your job, you can't just fold under the pressure.
No.
And folding under the pressure in an individual game is like, I guess there's room to do it, but it also that's also a test within itself. Is like dealing with all like the mental aspect of being like getting through the part where you're like telling yourself you're shit and like that's so hard. I think the mental battle in Melee is one of the more like rewarding parts of it. It's like it's a very interesting journey to go on. In any competitive fucking game, right? It's like the mental war like outside of playing and the physical execution of the game is a very special part of like the competitor's journey, you know?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Do you ever get when the yard first started and you guys all know each other because of Melee?
Yeah.
Do you ever, but obviously you're getting a lot of traction because the podcast is just good. Do you ever, are you guys ever hesitant to talk about Melee?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
We talked about this recently because we had a premium episode where we talked about it for like 40 minutes out of the hour. And there's a weird situation where there is a portion of our audience who definitely is sick of hearing about it, like a smaller portion, I would say. And then there's a larger there's a Melee portion of the audience that like loves hearing about it because they understand all of the ins and outs of it regardless. Mm-hmm. And then there's another, I would say the majority of the audience who just likes hearing us talk about stuff we care about and is like, I don't get every bit of this, but I like hearing you guys talk about it because you care. Yeah. I do think the important thing that we've had to make an effort to change or an effort to do is like contextualizing Melee stuff in like terms that are understandable or relatable regardless of your knowledge of the game. And I think that's like why that segment we talked about popped off with so many people, or how like even the documentary, like why the documentary can be really interesting to somebody who doesn't really care about the game or isn't super interested in video games, because it's a story about like people with like relatable themes the whole way through. And that's the way we need to talk about Melee on the show, because if you package it in a way that people can just like relate to and understand without game knowledge, right?
Yeah.
Then I don't want to talk about like the spacing on my wave dash, but I do want to talk about
beats the down air at what percent.
Yeah, nobody's gonna fucking like that, right? But if we talk about like the emotional, the emotions of competing, or like a funny thing that happened at a tournament together, that is something people love, I think.
How many people do you think you've introduced into Melee through the podcast?
Dude, I don't know how many, but it's a lot.
A lot?
Because the recurring story that I've heard from like locals in the current era is a lot of people have gone to locals or like their first major because they heard us talk about it on the show.
Sick.
Which is so sick. It is one of the things that make me the happiest to hear from a fan.
I can imagine.
I heard you guys talking about Melee on the show all the time, and I decided to go to a tournament, and now I'm a part of this community.
Yeah.
And that happens all the time.
I've even gotten, let's say, 4 people that have said that coming off the off season, and that's felt better than like getting X amount of views on a video or whatever amount of subs on whatnot.
Absolutely.
It's just like, oh my God, I introduced 4 people to Melee. Like, that's my favorite game to watch ever. Like,
because you're sharing something that means so much to you.
Yeah.
And you're like an introduction to this like meaningful change in their life, right?
Yeah.
In the same way that I don't think that thing even needs to be Melee in a weird way. Like if we were talking about ping pong constantly on the yard, or we talk about
animation or
like the literal game, I have watched the show. But if we were talking about, or right now we're talking a lot about basketball, because we've been playing basketball like every week.
Yeah.
Slime doesn't play, but the rest of us play.
Okay.
And we have a bunch of friends that come and play every week right now, and it's so much fucking fun.
Yeah,
and if people listening to that like go out and start playing pickup and like make some new friends because we just talked about it a bunch, that makes me so happy. This is the reverse of me talking about Molly. Actually, this is like
you should go.
It's like I want you to go play basketball, and I do not want you to take bad drugs. But I also want to talk about me doing both.
But what I'm hearing is take Molly and play basketball tomorrow.
To both same time.
Yeah. Dude, the basketball sounds fun. I wish we had something like that. We're a little bit more spread out. Seemingly, I don't know how long it takes you guys to get to the basketball courts that you guys play at.
It's close.
But we need to do something like that. I hit up Nick and I was like, we have like I don't know, fuck it if it's not been announced, but we have like a softball event coming up where we were supposed to play. It was supposed to be Optic versus X, and X dropped out. And I was like, dude, I would love to play like Moist and you guys, because I know you guys have been playing basketball and stuff. So I hit him up. He said you couldn't do it, but we should do something like that eventually.
Absolutely.
Optic versus, off-brand type.
Dude, we've been talking. We'll take any and all basketball challenges. I'll tell you that much, because we have to do.
Who's the 7? Who are the 5 and 2 subs?
The 5, me, Ludwig, Nick. Slime won't play, so not Slime. Nick Yingling.
Oh, and he's getting bodied. That's not even a question.
Have you seen Ratioed by Air the Yingling? Have you seen that video?
I have not.
So you know Smash Summit, right?
Yeah.
Do you know how Nick Yingling got voted into a Smash Summit?
I vaguely know the stories because I remember seeing his name and at the time and being like, who the fuck is Nick
Yingling? Yes. So before working for Ludwig,
right.
I think he worked at State Farm at the time. He got voted into Smash Summit as a competitor. Nick Yingling on paper is by far the least accredited competitor to ever make it into a Smash Summit.
Yes, of course.
But he got voted in, and there was this video that people would constantly post during the campaign process, and it's a TikTok that says "Ratioed by Air Yingling," and it's Yingling dunking over someone on a short hoop. And he just goes up, and it's narrated by our friend Mikey, who runs the Smash Camp.
That's so good.
And it's beautiful. And so that's the guy. He'll be ratioing Optic on the fucking court.
We'll see. I'll go one-on-one with Yingling. I'll let anyone else take anyone else. I got Yingling.
All right.
Actually, how tall is he?
Yingling? Yingling's probably like 5'9".
I got him.
5'9".
All right, I got Yingling. Matt, who do you have?
Basketball, I'm going to keep it a stack. I'm out.
You're out. You're on the sideline. You're part of the two
That's
subs.
okay. You can sit on the side.
Okay.
You can sit on the side with Slime. Slime's not going to play.
Matt would be shitting himself next to Slime.
That's where I want to be right
there. Do you box? Slime's been training boxing. You could fight him.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
That's what you guys could do on the side while we play basketball.
There's just Matt and Slime boxing in the corner.
Yeah, it's like the golden snitch in Harry Potter. You know, we play a full basketball game, but whoever wins the boxing match just overrides the result. If someone gets a knockout.
Whoever gets knocked out gets 50 points. Whoever knocks him out.
You can still win technically, but it's a huge swing if your boy wins in boxing.
Yeah, you could technically catch the golden snitch and still lose.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is insane. I feel like they should have talked about that a little bit in the books. But
dude, it happens in the books.
Really?
Actually, I don't want to reveal my embarrassing amount of Harry Potter knowledge. It does happen in the books.
Does it really?
Yeah.
All right.
It happens in...
Maybe I should have said movies. It's more embarrassing that I said...
Dude, it doesn't happen in the movies.
It's more embarrassing that I said books and I haven't read the books.
You haven't read the books.
That's more embarrassing.
Yeah. In one of the books, they go to the Quidditch World Cup, and one of the teams is getting beaten so badly that their guy, the Seeker, decides to catch the snitch just to end the game because they're getting bodied so badly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. See, I've seen that scene in the books or in the movies, but that's not.
So that's why we need Slime to come in. When we're losing the game, we need the Slime to come in with the uppercut.
Slime, we're down 49. There's the right-hander.
We need to
pop.
pop.
I'm like, Matt, no. That's a good idea. Mm-hmm. Instead of chess boxing, it's Quidditch basketball.
Yeah. You need to send Matt to training camp.
Yeah.
Starting tomorrow.
Soon.
Yeah, definitely.
Soon.
Need it.
If you're going to fight Slime. We just came up with the whole sport. Yeah. But yeah, that would be fun. I would love to. We're looking for, because we did a softball video, and I was like, we could take anyone. Like, you know how you do
in softball, you can absolutely take us. I'll promise you that.
You do something once outside, and you're like, I am the best. Like, if I dedicated time, I could go. I could for sure be pro.
Yeah,
I could for sure be the Barry Bonds of softball.
This is my thing. Yeah. After one single base hit.
Yeah. And now that I've turned 28, like whenever I wake up, I'm just sore now. I'm just sore no matter what. No matter what I'm doing.
Are you 28?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Somewhere estimated.
Yeah. Who knows? I think we lost the papers.
So you're not 24. Interesting. Lied to me.
Wait, did I say 24?
You said 24.
Oh, I can't remember. I lose track of What do you want to talk about next?
You're the host here.
I've got something. So, what podcast is it where they are on Fourside and they play each other?
Fourside Fights?
Fourside Fights.
I have a confession. It's funny because it's that so many of my friends are on that show. I've never watched it. Ever.
Why?
Ever. I don't watch Melee shows.
Why?
Just don't. I'm too in the sauce.
I don't watch COD shows. Now that you say it, I don't watch COD shows.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of really good COD podcasts, and I don't watch any of them.
My entire life is Melee in a way,
That's true.
or it's like been Melee for so long. It's like I want to watch a video about the fucking NBA. I don't want to watch Fourside Fights.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So I go once a year, consistently, sometimes 3 or 4 times a year. I get stupid into Melee again.
Yeah.
Like, not playing it, but like watching it, like watching and keeping up, seeing who is.
I heard you've been losing to Nick's Mario.
Okay. Nick got slammed in COD every time we played him. I just want to. It's the polar.
But Nick's good at COD.
I'm good at Melee. I will beat anyone in the world at Melee that hasn't played since they were kids.
That's fair. I'll
beat anyone in the world.
All right. So
they see me wave dash once and they'll be like, "What is
it? Oh, you went so far, but you didn't turn around.
Didn't turn around at all."
So you get into Melee a little bit every year.
Yeah, I get into Melee once every year, sometimes twice. And when I do that, oh my God, like no podcast is safe. The reads, I'm watching everything. And now it got to a point where I'm like, I'm watching Fourside Fights and what I can't remember what PP and Toph's show's name is, but I watched that.
Radio Melee.
Radio Melee. I was watching that every week, And in one of the Four Side Fights episodes, Slime was the guest, and one of the guys said, "So it's a very loud podcast," and one of the guys says, "You know, I haven't been this mad since Aiden Calvin ran events, and he put Jigglypuff versus Samus on the on the side stations." Instead of Fox games.
That's so fucking funny.
So I want you to talk about that a little bit, because I, as someone who's way outside of Melee, I don't know what they're talking about at all.
This is actually
because Slime came to your defense.
Dude, this is so deep cut. I don't even think. If I had to guess, the person bringing this up is only. I think they're probably joking, because. I think probably because the type of person I'm imagining this is Chroma. I feel like this is Chroma, and Chroma is the type of person who wouldn't mind watching the set that I'm thinking of on stream. There's a tournament that I helped run a long time ago under Endgame TV's brand called Flatiron.
Okay.
And it was like Colorado's biggest Melee tournament, and a friend of mine at the time was the head TO, because he was a part of Endgame TV, and then I was doing a lot of the TOing weekend of as well. And within that, you have to select matches that go on the stream, right?
Yeah.
And one of the matches I selected to put on was Cawmaster versus Hecz, which is Luigi versus Samus.
Okay.
The reason I put this on stream is if you love Melee. If you love the game, you'll know that Cawmaster and Hecz actually have a very interesting set history.
Okay.
And this is if you have that context, then this set is really exciting, because it hasn't happened in a long time, and they're both really old school players. And then
they're two characters that don't usually play each other.
No, definitely rarely, especially of that caliber on each side, right? And then off stream, one of the sets that was happening was Captain Smuckers, who's a really good Captain Falcon player, and SFAT. Keep in mind that Captain Smuckers has just won maybe his best tournament ever, which was a tournament I also ran called the Gang Hosts a Melee Tournament, which was in Philadelphia,
Good
and it
name.
was Always Sunny themed.
You're probably 5 for 5 on names right now.
Thank you.
You're
Appreciate that.
good on names.
So the Gang Hosts a
Maybe
Melee
not
Tournament.
sets shown on stream, but definitely names.
Definitely tournaments. At the Gang Hosts a Melee Tournament, which we did a whole Always Sunny sketch as the trailer and shit like that, which is actually the first thing that Slime saw me in.
Okay.
And he told me years later, he was like, I saw that. I thought you were funny. Which I was like, yes, Slime's approval. But that tournament happened, and Captain Smuckers, who is probably seated 8th at that event, and he was one of the better players in New York, runs it back from losers and wins the entire thing.
Okay.
He beats Zane twice to win that tournament in an amazing grand finals. People losing their fucking minds in the crowd. And it's a regional. But this tournament was insane because of his run. And so he's having a hot year, and he's playing off stream against SFAT. And Smuckers beats SFAT, I think, in another amazing off stream set. And nobody gets to see it that's not at the tournament, right?
Yeah.
So there's a big Reddit thread complaining about the fact that Samus Luigi was on stream while this other amazing set happened off stream. By the way, if SFAT had won, I think at the time nobody would have fucking cared.
Yeah.
But because Smuckers won, people were like, dude, how come we didn't get to see this and we had to watch Puff Luigi? And then I went into the Reddit thread and I typed a reply. And I basically explained that I not so eloquently told the people on Reddit that streams only lose money. I get to choose what I want to put on the stream.
Boom.
This is a gift to the audience.
Fuck yes.
Barely anybody is watching at this stage of the tournament anyway.
Love it.
Everybody, all of you are going to tune in and watch Top 8 anyway. This got downvoted to fucking oblivion. And everybody on the comments was so mad, dude.
Fuck them.
And you know what's so funny? To this day, I'm right. I know I'm right. I'm so unfathomably correct. It's not even. I didn't say it very politely, and in my old age, I would definitely word it differently. But people were mad at the core of my argument, which they were just wrong about. They were trying to tell me, the TO of the tournament series, all these things about marketing and the value of my 1,500 viewer top 48 stream. I was like, dude, I have no sponsors. This event, this is the last version of this event. We knew we likely weren't going to do it again already.
Right.
It's like, I'm not doing, you can't tell me shit, but people were so mad. And this became this was a prolific
it's so
a big moment in within the like niche Melee Stats crowd, because I went on like the Melee Stats podcast, which Chroma is like adjacent to that group of people.
Okay.
And I talked about it a bunch at the time. Do you know who Pay Money Wubby is? By chance?
No.
He's like a really big streamer, very funny. Also a huge Melee fan,
okay.
or at least was. And before Wubby was a famous streamer or YouTuber, there's a comment on that podcast from Wubby about like how good of an episode this is. It's very funny because he's like famous and successful like Ludwig is now.
Yeah.
But you can find him like commenting on like a 1,000 view podcast I did about Melee in like 2017.
Yeah.
And that's where that came from. And then Chroma just remembers that whole debacle.
Dude, that's so funny.
Because I think I was pretty good about that stuff at the time. It's like, I'm going to stand my ground on this like dumb ass. It's like, I don't owe you guys anything. I spend a bunch of money to make this stream happen. I receive no financial benefit from it. It is the definition of a gift. And I am not obligated to serve.
You don't have to pay for it.
And you know what? They all did fucking tune in during Top 8. Because the viewership for Top 8 was like 15K during that tournament. I hang on to this because I think I'm actually very good at conceding, admitting I'm wrong, and being like, and taking in new information and being like, you know what? I fucked up.
Yes.
Or like, I'm sorry. Or you know what? This is the way it actually was and I made a mistake.
Right.
To this day, I'm fucking right about that. That's what that's about.
It's so good because I didn't know any of that, but as soon as he said it, he said he put this person on stream instead of this person on stream. I immediately went, Aiden's right, because as being in a tournament organizer role before, I put on stream the matches that no one else would ever see happen ever.
Yes.
And even if over here Scump is playing Clayster in round 1 of a tournament, I'm gonna put Dr. Lupo playing Dr. Disrespect first round on stream 10 out of 10 times, because that'll never happen again.
Of course.
You'll see Scump and Clay play each other in 2 months.
They'll play all the time.
You'll never see the two doctors.
Hugo, you know what? Hugs and Commaster have not played since. I'll tell you that. I made that call, and I see you understand.
I
understand where it's coming
completely.
from. And also,
it's always wonderful telling people on Reddit to fuck themselves.
Oh, I love it.
It's
love it.
It's like a drug.
And the context, it's also funny because like you also get this as an organizer, is at the time, you know what, the stream didn't make any money, and it costs a lot of money to run.
Right.
But what did make money is ticket sales, right? So I have to make the tournament in person as good as possible for all the people that paid to attend my event, right? So the stream running and selecting the matches that go on the stream is such a low priority in like the overall context of the event. Like I remember putting that match on stream and being like, I like quickly flipped through the matches with my like fellow TO, and I was like, let's put this one on because that would be interesting. No more thought, because I have to get back and run the actual fucking event for the 500 people who bought tickets for it, you know?
Yeah.
And with the rest of the staff that is like there with me, and I can't be bothered to spend a significant amount of time thinking about some aspect of the event that isn't making me any money and like ultimately isn't that important because of it.
Right.
And like that's just, you know, that's how I
love
feel.
How the passion came out of nowhere.
You
even went like you put the drink aside.
It just gets me so fired up because I changed when it was necessary, because when I went to go work at Summit, right? The Summit business model is entirely different than what I was doing back then. Summit, the stream is a huge financial component of like how the company and the event makes money.
Also, isn't every set streamed?
And at a Smash Summit event, every set is streamed. At main stage, you have to be like selective and stuff, right? But the whole dynamic of like what is important, what makes money, like why your broadcast matters in ways that it wouldn't at a traditional open tournament. It's like, I've worked that side of things too. Yeah. I know when it's important and you need to invest time in that product. But at the time, and that's how I know I'm fucking right, dude. Because I've played all the sides. And I know I'm certain Chroma is a good friend. I'm certain Chroma was like bringing up like a funny joke.
Yeah,
I don't think Chroma would be like
I just knew there was more to the story.
But that's funny you bring that up. I did not expect to talk about that. Yeah.
That is so funny. I just hearing it initially, I went as doing the same thing that actually you did it at a much more competitive scale because I tend to throw more content driven competitive tournaments. Mm-hmm. Actually, probably what you did when you started running events with Ludwig is probably more along the lines of what I
when the
tend
showcase
to do.
And like the product of the stream is like kind of the focus.
Yeah. And also you're trying to see like the two content creators play each other rather than the best players in the world. You were trying to get the best players in the world there, which is super respectable. And I would love to do that one day, but there's already such infrastructure in COD where I don't have to do that. And plus, I wouldn't get the rights to do it anyway.
We kind of ran into that with Valorant because I don't know if you've seen our the Ludwig Tarek Invitational.
Yeah.
So that event, it was my idea, like my pitch to Ludwig and Tarek. I was like, let's do like a cool Valorant event. Let's do like a legitimate, competitive, big Valorant event. And I think, unfortunately, I didn't work on the most recent one, but I think both of them fell to the same issue, which is that because of the existing like tournament infrastructure. The teams that we wanted, or like the peak, the pinnacle of competition in Valorant, it's just so hard to get it to happen at like our third party like off-season event, and that's too bad. Melee was a good canvas for me at like especially in college, in the sense that there was so much freedom to do. Like all you needed to do to host the biggest or the most important event was just host an event that was like good enough. You could like claw your way to the top basically.
Right.
And I appreciated that about Melee. It's lacking a lot that other esports have, right? But a benefit was that somebody like me, who I think at the time had a very like clear ambition, could find his way at like the top of the scene. Like, whereas like in a bigger game, like you could never do that with League of Legends because the system's just owned by the company that makes it, right? And there's benefits that come with that too, but that trade-off, I think Melee allowed me to grow and succeed in that way because the developer at the time was like pretty hands off.
And I feel like because of that, Melee might be the best grassroots esport fucking ever. Like ever. I don't know. I mean, what other?
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing else really compares in terms of like all the little facets of like what that competing in that game means. From the houses that we were talking about earlier to like the tournaments at colleges, the tournaments at bars, like popping it up like wherever you go. Like, dude, I think that by the nature of the game being on this very simple and cheap console, especially it's like the reality of the average Melee player right now is like maybe you have an old Wii that doesn't even have a functioning disk drive. It's like modded to shit because you just bought an SD card and you run Melee off of that. And you don't need to like treat it with any care because it's like a pretty resilient old piece of hardware. You don't need a complicated PC. You have this old shitty TV that just like happens to sit around, and you and your friends get to boot it up whenever you want. Maybe you can play it for 15 minutes before you go to class, and you can't do that with other games. Like I like something I think about sometimes is I remember one time I was in a garage in Bellingham, Washington, and we were playing Melee in the garage, and in true Melee player fashion, there is a massive bong to the right of us.
Right.
I'm not a big weed smoker, but most people in Bellingham, Washington are. and my friend, it's a mix of like weed and tobacco, and we were playing Ganondorf Dittos in the garage. and my friend Jaren, who brought the bong, and my friend Spencer are sitting next to me. Spencer asked Jaren, like, yo, can I hit this? Because he's off the rotation during the match. And the garage door is open, and the bong is just fucking this big, man. And Jaren is like, careful, it's a dirty bowl. Like, it's tobacco and weed. And Spencer's like, don't worry, man. And he takes like the most massive pull known to man, and then like has this moment, and me and Jaren stop playing Melee and go watch Spencer stumble into the front yard and just vomit everywhere. And I was like, dude, a Counter-Strike or a League player never gets to experience what just happened.
I was wondering where the tieback was going to be.
There's never a moment where like an online PC player gets to experience what I just experienced in this garage.
100%.
And that's, I was like, that's the beauty of Melee. That's the beauty of console gaming right there.
I don't even know the equivalent. The equivalent can't be talked about in Call of Duty. It's you get off in game 2, go do hardcore drugs, and then come back for game 3. I think that would be the only real equivalent. That's so good. Yeah, I mean, makes perfect sense. So you go from hosting these. It's funny because when Nick was on, I was very. It was one of my first episodes, so I was very lenient on all the notes.
Really?
And he was like, we don't need this. At one point, he grabs this and goes, we don't need this. Just we can talk about whatever. And I said, if I don't have this, we will talk about Melee for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay. And here, I haven't used it. We've talked about Melee
We've talked about a lot of Melee. I'm hoping that this is palatable to the
we talked about Melee for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
But one thing I did want to ask is, when you go to the yard and then you're also working in merchandise and also event organization for Ludwig, what was the stark difference between? I'm sure there was between hosting such a open, basically pure open bracket tournaments for the grungiest of competitors, and now you have money to play with.
Yeah.
And you also have access to more than just competitors. You have access to creators and different things. Like what was that like? Like when you first started throwing events with Ludwig?
I think Summit like really greased the wheels in that transition, because working at Beyond the Summit was a big difference between what I worked on before. Those like big open tournaments with minimum budget and like kind of sweat I was willing to put in and the couple other people I worked with at the time. Whereas going to Summit was a really transformative time of like, oh, I work at a real company where like there's different teams responsible for different portions of the event. Not everything falls to me. Yeah. These people are professionals at their job. They get paid to do what they do. And they like, when they're outlining their responsibility, they're going to do that. They're going to do it well. And I can focus on just like organizing the overarching project. And that was a really nice time. And I think also at Summit, I learned a lot about the ins and outs of like how esports itself is like monetized. Not this like niche area of like pop-up grassroots tournaments that I was doing, but like, the differences between like Dota and CS, and these grassroots games I'd worked with before, how Summit monetizes their Smash broadcasts and small Smash events versus like what the revenue structure was of the Smash tournaments that I worked on. And then as time passed, like going into COVID, like what white label work looks like. It's like, a lot of Summit's business post-COVID was just companies like we did like a Chipotle Warzone event and Chipotle Fortnite event. And that's just like Chipotle, like some marketing agency taking Chipotle's dollars and being like, we need to do a gaming related activation, and they pay Summit money to like operate and stream it. And Summit's brand isn't anywhere on it. They're getting paid to be the production contractor, right? I didn't know about any of these things before I worked there. And I think getting used to that professional environment and like getting used to monetizing these events in a very different way than I used to, which was basically through ticket sales and like grassroots marketing through like Facebook and social media and stuff like that, changed a lot going over to Ludwig, because Ludwig had a comparable set of resources money-wise, but then like a smaller team. And then also you didn't have to worry as much about like watching the spend against the expenses of the event. The benefit of going to Ludwig was like taking all this knowledge from Summit and being like, now we just get to do what Ludwig wants to do, not be too concerned about the financials, and just purely run stuff because it would be cool to run it. And I think popping the top off that and just like going crazy for a year, especially with YouTube's like his first year of his YouTube contract was really, really fun, because I think we got to activate like a bunch of really unique and interesting ideas. Chess boxing standing out like most unique among them all, right?
It's incredible. Did that win any awards?
I don't think it won any awards.
It should have.
But it was crazy. The amount of people who know about that event is like so much further beyond the scope of like anything I'd worked on previously. Everybody knows about that event.
For sure.
And it for me to like work on something that is so recognized in that way felt really, really good. That was also like an incredibly difficult event.
Yeah.
Had so many moving pieces, but worked with like a wonderful production team on that project, JK Productions. And I think that was the main transition. It was like, let's take these like two areas of like operating events that I know, like on the boots on the ground, grassroots stuff, do it all by yourself, like, and find a way and work hard because you fucking care about it. And then go to this new world where, but you know, in terms of production companies, BTS was like still fairly scrappy, but much more built out, team orientated, professional. You can rely on people, careful about budgets, and let's combine those two worlds to like do really big things with Ludwig. And now it's like it's like kind of like correcting itself right now, where I think Ludwig, after his first big YouTube year, like has to be a little more conscious. You know, the reality is like you cannot spend without concern forever. And not to say there was no moderation
that's like
at all.
An esports motto, right?
Yeah, but like
put that on a neon sign and put it in every office.
All the esports teams need to know.
Yes.
TSM's 9 employees have it up on the fucking wall right now.
I didn't say it. It's insane.
Look, it's not the employee's fault. It's not the employee's fault.
It's not.
It's probably, you know, the VC companies.
Someone's
got
fault.
a little crazy. Fucking. Anyway, the point being is that now things are becoming a little more moderate and like careful, just in terms of like, okay, we need to make sure we make money on this event.
Yeah.
But I think Ludwig taking that first year, and I was lucky to be along for the ride for that, of like being able to do anything, was a big part of like making statements as to like what Ludwig wanted, what Ludwig could do, what his company means and stands for.
Yeah.
And I think that ethos is like meant to carry into the future. So it was really cool to be the guy during that era.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate getting to work on all that. And now I'm just doing merchandise, which I've been doing the whole time. I was doing that alongside the events, and now I still do the merchandise. Yeah.
You remind me a lot of Lil Uzi Vert.
Really? Yeah. That is not who I thought you were going to say at all.
Well, who did you think I was going to say?
maybe like wife.
Don't worry, I'll get there. So,
kind of a similar haircut.
For Lil Uzi Vert? Wife. Oh.
Yeah. No, Lil Uzi Vert.
Okay.
Anyway.
Lil Uzi Vert a couple years ago said, I'm retiring from rapping. And I saw the announcement and I went, and people were like, oh my God, he's retiring. And I'm like, shut up. You said I'm not doing events anymore. And I had a similar feeling.
Yeah.
I had a similar feeling. I saw a podcast where you said, you know, I've just recently, I'm done doing events.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, you're not. So when are you coming back? Is what I'm asking.
It'll happen. It'll happen. I know it'll happen because I can feel the burn inside me. Like I can like feel it's in there, and it's just it needs to find its way out again. I think just a lot of the things I enjoyed about events or have been gone for a while, and I think I need to find that again. I need to find like the reason to do it again.
I know you said you were jaded a little bit. I think is the word you used by how esports has, you know, I guess grown in the way that, you know, there's a lot of people probably don't know this, but when you're throwing events that are dealing with a game that is modern, there's a lot of locked doors that you can't go in, and you have to get permission for everything you do, and it's exhausting in a sense. Is that the part? And I knew what you were talking about when you were saying this.
Yes.
I can't remember what podcast you were talking about on, but is that the biggest element of why you decided not to do events anymore?
Not the biggest, but it's a big part of it. I would say the number one thing is there's been a lack of personal fulfillment from it. But the second thing is that running the events was getting like increasingly annoying. I think the white label stuff is a good example of like of that. I found increasingly as I got more and more like embedded in and like knowledgeable of the way esports was funded on the whole, not just like teams, events. A lot of it boils down to some company's marketing department gives, or some subsect of their marketing department decides to allot their portion of their budget to an agency who then communicates potentially with another agency, which potentially then hires your company to run the event. And that dynamic of like budget to like agency with like 4 people in between, with everybody feeling obligated to make a decision about this thing they know fucking nothing about, is this dynamic that you have to push decision making through. And I think it became really apparent when I was working on white label projects, but it permeates every aspect of esports because marketing dollars are the primary mechanism for funding. And all of these, some guy who doesn't give a shit, who's just living his life like he should, has to show his boss why his job has meaning. So he has to make decisions and has a checklist and make a slide deck that shows that like he worked today.
Yeah. Oh my God. And I've probably said that sentence 50 times.
And he sends that to the other guy who's the same as him, and then she sends it to the client. And then finally at the end point at the client, which is fucking me, I'm like, why do you want to run a Warzone event this way? I don't even play Warzone, and I know you shouldn't run it this way. Here's a better way to do it. And then I have to wait 2 days on and God forbid I have to fucking communicate over email. I know that's just how business is done, but I hate email. And then I have to email back, wait for a response. They don't even know what I'm saying because they don't play the game or play video games or watch streams, but for some reason they control the $250,000 budget that's fucking getting sent over for this project.
Through a video game.
And then they say no. And then we have to do the project in their shitty way.
Yeah.
And I think that is the dynamic that made me really jaded because it is so present. And the nice thing about working for Ludwig for that year and a half is not that none of that ever affected anything, and not that we ever worried about money. You know, we still have to think about money.
Yeah.
But the nice thing was that those things were a lot more limited in that first year and a half. It was like, let's go and do. We will figure out the funding and the money after. Because we have a lot of money from this YouTube deal, and we can spend it on really interesting and cool projects. So let's do it our way in the most interesting way. And that was a really cool time. And that was what I did in college as well, is like I had full autonomy over my events. I got to focus on, most TOs at the time would not focus on flying out random players from Europe because they don't even get why I would do that. And or they would just run tournaments in the same format and the same like a double elim style every time or whatever, right? Like they do the bracket the same way every time.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is dumb. It can be better. Let me do it this way. And then that was kind of my ethos for TOing it all, was like, I can just do this. This is not hard. I can do it better. Let me just do it.
Yeah.
And that was like why I wanted to do anything at all. And I think that's also why it's really, really hard for me to run the same project for long periods of time, because as soon as I get through like 1 to 2 iterations of it, it's like, well, I've checked it off.
Yeah.
It's like no longer novel. And it doesn't fulfill me anymore, which is bad because
it's bad.
It's not like for example,
way,
if you run a weekly Smash tournament, or maybe you run a monthly Madden LAN, or you just organize
a yearly charity event with retro games.
Or a fucking maybe you even run like a rec volleyball league.
True,
and you've done that for 20 years, right?
Yeah.
It is important that people run those things. It is so important that those things continue to exist, and not every event in series is dependent on some organizer's like fulfillment and ego.
That's true.
And I've always said that I am a terrible local TO tournament organizer.
Dude, I would be horrible.
Exactly.
Oh my God, I would be terrible.
But that's why I became jaded.
I forgot what I asked. That's really good. So how many times, if you don't mind answering, you don't have to if you don't want to, how many times during all of the Ludwig events did they end in the green?
I'd have to think about everything.
Because I think a lot of people misunderstand how often esports events and events online in general make money. It's a lot, if at all, it's a lot less than you realize.
Yeah. A lot of them lose, right? Because I think the gamble,
a lot of them break even.
Yeah, some break even. Like, to preface the Ludwig stuff, like pretty much all of Summit stuff, like ran even to good, like quite profitable.
Your cost margins are a lot lower because you don't have to pay for internet. You don't have to pay for there was
a lot of like
studio,
a lot of embedded costs.
Yeah.
BTS was like really sensitive and smart about budgeting. Like in Ludwig's case, I want to say like we lost money. We lost money on chess boxing. We lost money on there's this, there's the famous clip of me like telling Ludwig we lost $200,000 on our Smash event. That isn't true. We lost about $120,000. But
that's good.
Yeah, no, which is bad. But it's something that we had permission to do.
Right. Yeah. That was that Scotch?
That was Ludwig Smash Invitational.
LACS.
LACS this year, like the one we just ran this past July.
The Leffen one?
The Leffen one. We made money on that. We made quite a bit of money on that.
There you go.
But that's an example of like, I think that event wouldn't have, the difference between like 2 years ago and that event is that 2 years ago we would have run that event because Ludwig just thought it was cool and we don't care about the funding mechanism. And the only reason that event happened in the most recent year was because, we have this opportunity to run a profitable Smash event. And that was like the catalyst for doing it.
And a major sponsor comes in.
Exactly.
It's a lot different when a major sponsor comes in.
Absolutely.
It's so great.
So that just moved the needle. I want to say the only big event that I worked on that made money or like broke even in that first year was the Ludwig. I want to say Ludwig Tarek broke even.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it did. And then there was smaller stuff that technically makes money, like we did the Mario Kart Championships, and that's an event, and it did take a lot of time to set up.
Yeah.
But the spend is so minimal, and then you could say the profit is like the
That was
VOD and
the
like
double
stream
dash thing?
revenue. Yeah, we used the double dash like broadband.
Yeah.
We took like an internet switch. You plug 8
watched that.
GameCubes into it with adapters because the GameCube has a LAN mode that like 2 games used ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was awesome because I was trying. We did a Mario Kart at the last off season, and I was trying to. I was like, there's this weird thing that happens whenever I'm like, I want to do this. This would be fucking incredible.
Yeah.
And then I look it up and fucking Ludwig has already done it. And that happened, dude, that has happened 7 or 8 times over the past 4 years. And so that was another thing. I was like, dude, on main stage, there's, 2 waves of people playing Mario Kart. It would be so cool. Has anyone ever done anything like that? And I was like, of course.
Yeah.
But, it was really interesting to see that you guys did it and it looked like it went well. And the smaller events did that have a sponsor, a primary sponsor on it, or was it just the stream?
I don't think the Mario Kart did, but we didn't need it because the expenses and stuff were
Yeah.
That was a really really dope event. I remember going having Double Dash as a kid and looking in the manual and seeing that the LAN mode existed. But and I thought it was so cool. I was like, this would be so cool to have all my friends and all the GameCubes. But it's like as a fucking however old I was, 6. It's like I don't have the money to set this up, or probably the friends to play it, But now in adulthood, it's like it's cool to see this.
I have one of those. So I have 2 ideas. I'm gonna run one by you, and I'm gonna pitch you the other one. You ready?
Okay.
So if I say it, then you guys can't steal it.
Okay.
Is that okay?
That's fair.
Okay, I have an idea. No one's gonna care about this, but I think it's fucking incredible. So you find 2 either teams or creators, and you send them Game Boy Colors, one with Pokemon Red, one with Pokemon Blue, and you have them play through it. They can play through it on stream if they want. They have to use the Game Boy, and then on main stage, they use the adapter that transforms your Pokemon from Pokemon Red and Blue to Pokemon Stadium, and they battle on the N64 on stage.
That is dope. That would be so sick.
That's pretty good, right?
Yes. Yeah, that is fucking awesome.
Now the one I want to pitch you is in off-season 2, we had multiple games. We had Call of Duty, we had Melee.
Yeah.
We had Guitar Hero, which did really well. We were excited about Guitar Hero.
Nice.
And then we also had Super Smash Bros. 64, which I respect the game a lot. It was not very exciting for in-venue.
Yeah. Yeah, I think 64 is tough. I think there's...
And the thing is with the off-season, with the Melee side and the COD side, we do this on COD side, but it's easier to explain the Melee side. There's so many variables in like a charity tournament where it's like, if we hit this goal, then Mute City gets unlocked.
Yeah.
Like that's the whole backbone really of the event.
Yeah.
And I did that too with 64. I was like, if we hit this amount, then Hyrule gets unlocked.
Oh,
and
okay.
Hyrule got unlocked, and another another stage got unlocked, and no one ever played any of them. They just played Dreamland the whole time.
Whoa, really? They just kept playing Dreamland the whole time?
Dreamland.
Yeah.
Which is, I understand it.
Have you seen the video of why Hyrule is banned in that game?
Yes.
Dude, that shit is so
But they have
funny.
since modded in a timer.
Yeah, yeah. So it's probably fine
So
now,
it's
right?
probably fine now.
Yeah.
It's probably more Melee-ish.
Dude, the lore of 64 is insane.
Yeah.
Like, the people used to... I remember, because I came up in a scene of Melee players that was also... There was a subsection of the group I was close with that was diehard about 64.
Really?
So they would just tell me about the lore. And this idea of, like... this idea of like a small town in Peru just like happening to have some of the greatest Smash 64 players of all time, and you have to like go to this like town in Peru on a pilgrimage to like play with the best people
Yeah.
is so funny.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the Captain Jack thing, but way more niche.
Oh,
And with-
extremely, extremely. It's kind of like have you seen like Tekken? I think like a great story in esports is the rise of like Pakistan and Tekken.
No.
Do you know about this?
No.
So like the main breakout guy, there's a ton of really good players, but the main great breakout guy is his tag is Arslan Ash.
Okay.
And Tekken is really popular, right? It's like a huge game. And Arslan Ash comes from Pakistan to EVO, and like nobody knows who he is. Okay. Up until this point, like Korea is like considered the best Tekken region, like by far. And this guy comes from, basically, nowhere in the scope of esports. Right. And wins EVO over the entire massive field of like Tekken 7 entrants. And people are like, who is this guy?
That's crazy.
And if you look up, you might be able to pull this up, Matt, is that there's this famous esports photo of if you just look up Arslan Ash victory, it probably comes up, but it's an amazing photo of him taken after he's won the tournament. Yeah. Because he's like on the stage praying as like the victory animation plays behind him. Wow. That one. Yeah. Dude.
And this guy, no one knew.
And no one knew who this guy was.
Wow. And he wins.
And he won the biggest tournament of all time. And for Tekken at the time. Yeah. And then the big thing was, after he wins, he would go on to win like EVO Japan and then EVO again. And then he because the spotlight's on him, right? He gets to tell the story of like, it's not just me. Like there's other players in my country who are like as good, if not better than me, who like either can't afford to travel because like people just don't have a lot of money. Yeah. Or can't get visas to go to the countries that tournaments are in, and they just can't leave. And there's this whole scene, like basic, like underground scene of Tekken in Pakistan that nobody knew about.
And they're just so good.
And they're so good. And the greatest Tekken player of all time, or at least many would consider, is this guy named Nee. Yeah. And he's Korean. And he traveled to Pakistan to go play a bunch of first to tens with like 15 of Pakistan's best guys, and like went on this like gauntlet run playing all these people, and it gave like all these players a chance to like showcase their talent basically. Yeah. And nobody knew, but now it's like well known that like Pakistan is like the like some of the best Tekken in the world is there, and it was there the whole time. They're playing in like these makeshift arcades with like black market consoles and stuff because these companies didn't actually import the product formally there and stuff like that. People playing on like broken sticks, and they're fucking amazing at the game. Wow! Like, and all of this had existed the whole time. Yeah. And that's kind of like 64 is like that in Peru. And, and it's just. There's just like these little insulated communities of people that played like a fighting game that could travel.
No one had ever discovered that there was SoCal Melee, and then all of a sudden, that has to be the equivalent.
Oh, you're from California? whoa, dude.
So I bring up 64 to say this: that most likely this year with the off season, I don't know if we'll do a main broadcast for 64 again. I'd like to have 64 there, but I don't know if we're going to incorporate it as much. But that opens up something, because this year I think what we're going to do is have like a set budget, and whoever gets more entrants between Guitar Hero and X Game would get the higher prize pool. Like one gets 5,000, one gets 3,000. Whoever gets more entrants gets the most.
Yeah,
that's what we're thinking about going with. And I was going to ask you if that X Game, do you think Mario Kart Wii would be a good game for that?
That'd be so sick.
That would be good.
I think that would be fucking wild.
Because we already have all the Wii's set up.
I think you could do that. Yeah. I think so. Two cool things about this. Okay. Fate, that tournament that you said with like the little paper icons and stuff. Yeah. They've been running a Mario Kart LAN at their Smash tournament that's gotten pretty big. Okay. Like the one this past year had like, I want to say it had like 90 or 100 entrants at a tournament with 500 people, right?
For sure.
Because people just want to take a crack at Mario Kart.
Yeah.
And also...
And it's the melee of Mario Kart.
And it's the melee of Mario Kart. Yeah. Of course. And I think that something cool you could do is so there's this really popular mod for Mario Kart Wii called CTGP. Okay. Stands for Custom Track Grand Prix. Okay. And the main reason to use it is, the two main reasons is one, it adds custom tracks to the game. You don't need to use these. Like the competitive scene is like, there's a custom track competitive scene, there's a standard track competitive scene basically. Yeah. But it adds like 220 tracks to the game.
Good Lord.
Which is insane.
Okay.
And that's really cool. But the other things it adds is like a bunch of quality of life stuff, like an anti-cheat for online. Okay. Because the game used to be famously easy to hack in.
Right.
But it helps with stuff like that. Also adds a LAN mode and a 24-player mode. So you can have 24 people competing in the same lobby on LAN with like Wii's connected.
Holy shit.
And I've been trying to convince Ludwig to do this, but he thinks that number is too big for like a good stream product for like showcasing like people's like in an influencer focused economy, if you will. You know, if you're one of the 24 influencers in a race, you don't get a lot of like there's not a chance for your personality to like shine in the same way. Yeah. But if it was just a competition, 24 people races, I think that's kind of cool.
Oh my God, that's a nightmare though. So many wires just crossed in my brain.
Maybe it's just too many. And the normal 12 is still like a lot of fun, right?
So the normal race, the normal competition is 12 people in one lobby. Mm-hmm. They race. Whoever wins moves on.
Yeah. The format you usually do is like you'll take pools of 12 people, and then you'll take like the top. You have like cumulative points across like X races. Yeah. Usually like 8 to 12 races. And then you'll take like the top cut of each pool. So like the top 6 in points move on to the next round. Okay. And then you like combine two groups of the people that progressed into like a new lobby.
Oh my God. I hope Corey is a producer of Off Season. I hope he's not listening. Because he's already like, fuck, stop talking.
Yeah.
He's telling you to stop
tough
talking.
Ideas. It is a complicated event to run, but I shill for Mario Kart when I can.
So basically, before we went to the bathroom, you were in the middle of saying that you were super excited to TO the off-season 3
Mario
Kart Wii.
Yeah, Mario Kart Wii tournament. The 24-player per room LAN.
Corey Dunn is shitting himself so
much. Dude, it would be a nightmare to set up. I'll give you that.
It would be. I'm just trying to think. I love the. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just because I like Melee a lot and I'm getting older. I'm like 25 now, so I'm trying to figure out I'm still in love with like the old school video games, like old school games, and old school tech. Anything old school from the 90s and 2000s.
I don't like being the guy who's like the old stuff is better, and I don't think I am, but I do think like as somebody who has played a lot of Mario Kart games, and spent and has an eye for competition and competitiveness. Mario Kart Wii is the most competitive. I won't even tell you it's the best. Like in the same way that I think like if you're a casual Smash fan, dude, Ultimate has got to be so dope. It's just got so many fucking characters in it, man. It's got so much stuff. Or like Brawl had like Subspace Emissary. But if you're talking about the one that's the best to like play and compete in, it's like, of course I'm going to tell you it's Melee.
Yeah, it's the best one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
and Mario Kart Wii is the best Mario Kart in the same way that Melee is the best Smash game. It's like it's the best competitive and like mechanical game.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about before we because I know we're winding down and we haven't talked much about the yard. We said we've dabbled a little bit. The yard is I've already said it's tremendous. It's such a great podcast, especially not only on YouTube and on audio platforms, but you guys are crushing on Patreon as well.
Thanks.
Which has to feel great because you know how many people are like really invested.
Yeah, the Patreon stuff is sick.
Yeah. What is the future of the yard? Are you guys just, because I know you guys are working on a Dungeons and Dragons video or series right now, and also continue to do the podcast. Is the yard becoming something bigger than what you guys initially set it out to be?
I mean, I think it already is, in the sense that the show itself and the Patreon and everything around it is already much further along than I think we expected the podcast to be when we first started. Like, I remember when Nick talks about this a lot too. We thought we were going to have like 1,000, 2,000 patrons. Like, we thought that would be cool to get to. Like if after like a year, maybe we could get to numbers like that. And now I think we have like 35,000 patrons.
It's insane.
We're like the biggest account. We're the biggest account on the site that by publicly listed revenue. Yeah. There's a couple. There's definitely a few accounts that make more money than we do, but they hide their numbers, which is funny. And we're like, no, just be honest about it.
Yeah.
It's like, you guys can see it. And which is just insane to think about because it's like life changing, and that's really, really cool. And I think the D&D show is like an intention of like, let's expand into something that is like similar, has found a lot of success for like other similar shows, has found a lot of success on Patreon. I think it was an idea that also Ludwig took initiative with and like wanted to do, which I think he is the gatekeeper in the sense of it's challenging to get Ludwig to commit to anything like yard related because of how much content related stuff he has to do outside of the yard. Right. Whereas like our main content output as the three of us is the yard, right? Yeah. But the yard is just a piece of Ludwig's pie that he uses to like support his life and like companies and like stuff like that. So it's a very different decision making process for him. And then I think in general, all four of us have different ideas and goals of like where the yard will be and like where it can go. I think the general idea of the future beyond the D&D show is that we want to do more like special episodes that is us committing to like some sort of activity. I think the example that we've referenced a lot is like Trash Taste podcasts. Yeah. We'll do these specials where they like, I think they'll go like drifting, or they'll just do some sort of they'll have some sort of experience together, and there will be like a cut up YouTube video of the four of them doing it.
Oh, okay.
And we've talked about like what stuff could we do like that.
Yeah. Then you're kind of venturing more into like the Sidemen.
Oh yeah.
You're a group of content creators that do content together rather than a podcast.
Which is weird to think about because I think that wasn't really like our intention initially, or not what like the three of us were really seeking out of it. But I think we're all into that idea. I think the D&D show is going to be a big step. We've talked and teased about it for a while, but it's finally like coming to fruition right now through the help of somebody we've hired and the work that's already been put in. And
Had you ever played D&D before this?
Me and Ludwig had. Oh, okay. I've played, but we've both played very little.
Okay.
I've
never watched it, never played it. Yeah. I don't know anything about it. And I was planning on watching you guys play it because it'd be nice to watch someone who has no idea.
Yeah.
Because if you threw me into a Critical Role episode...
we'd be so
I have no fucking...
It's hard. But Anthony and Nick haven't played at all. I've barely played.
Yeah.
And then Ludwig's also barely played. So I think we've already done like practice sessions because we don't want people to be like, we don't want to not know how to play in like the episodes.
Yeah.
So we've done like 3 practice like campaign or like sessions already. So that's a good precursor.
Have those been filmed or no?
They are, yeah. There'll be releases like behind the scenes footage like a long time.
That's cool.
Down the road, I think is the idea. So we have that. And then I think for Nick, and also I think also Slime, and then to a degree myself, there's this idea of the Yard being like a publishing platform for things. So if there's some sort of creative endeavor that one of us really wants to pursue, then the Yard can be the vehicle for like delivering that.
Okay.
And I think we've each thought about different types of like shows and things we could do that way. Probably the best example so far is that a friend of ours named Dia, Nick and Anthony helped produce a comedy special for him because he does stand-up.
Okay.
And that's on our channel, and that's just uploaded under the Yard.
Oh, really?
Or like a different project they did was this content piece where they went and filmed at Riot, and Slime does like a fake investigation of Riot Games and like the evil that they have at the company.
Okay.
And it's like filmed like kind of mockumentary style. Anthony very bravely hits a fake. It's not actually filmed at Riot, this part, but he hits a fake crack pipe in the video at Riot Games. Like, dude, it was brave of them to put that in the video because we premiered this at our Valorant event, which was like a Riot approved event, and we didn't show the crack thing on the stream preview of like the video because we premiered it there, but in the YouTube cut of the video, Anthony hits a crack pipe, and then. We've been told that no more crack pipes in Riot, but Riot we heard that Riot employees really liked the video. So anyway, point being that that's like the type of stuff is like there's other creative avenues that could be explored with the brand. I think.
Yeah.
Like if I think I went to the boys and said like I really really want to run like a tournament. And I want to brand it under the Yard and have it be the Yard's tournament, or I want to do like a Yard live event, that would be something we would do.
Yeah.
And I think that the specifics are just up in the air at the moment. It just takes the commitment of us to like those projects. And I think it's tough because like one, we don't have a ton of like super clear ideas to move forward with other than the D&D show. And then two, I think we're kind of bogged down for time. Like Ludwig isn't looking to spend that time on the Yard as an individual, because he's more at stake. Like that's the reality.
Right.
And then Nick has a very busy full-time job with like off-brand Ludwig's company, and then I have a busy full-time job with Ludwig's company Mogul Moves, and so it's just how it goes.
And Slime's got Valorant to play.
Yeah. He's got a budding content career.
Whenever the Yard first started, when I was talking to Nick about it, he said something that briefly entered his mind was that he was slightly nervous, but after the initial influx of viewers and stuff, after the feedback, he was a little less nervous about it. Is that he didn't want the podcast to be Ludwig and the boys? Like he wanted it to be its own thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Was that something that entered your mind as well when the pod first started?
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I think I was less worried about like the art of it being evaluated that way and more worried about the impression that we were just like riding his coattails for money and like didn't really provide any real value.
Yeah.
And that impression comes from this idea of like, I think there's a very common idea of like some group of like mid funny friends think they can do like a podcast together.
Yeah.
Which
give a bunch of white guys a mic and
yeah. Which fucking could have been us, you know? Like maybe that was just us. Maybe we were like overconfident about what we could do and like who we are. Maybe this doesn't deserve to be a product, because I do think, you know, credit where credit's due, because I'm on a lovely set. But I think that podcasting on the whole is kind of a lazy medium. And
right. No, I agree with you.
In the same way that, like, you know, when we were talking about like way earlier how like two like kind of famous YouTubers can just kind of pop up a podcast together by just like recording them having a conversation.
Yeah.
I feel like that is the rooted idea of like podcasts for a lot of people, or like what podcasting is. So I didn't want to have something that doesn't, you know, just comes across as like a money grab from like Ludwig's friends. But I think we have differentiated ourselves and like carved out enough of our own individual value that I really have like no insecurities about that, honestly.
Oh yeah. I mean, you guys even talk about on the pod a lot that Ludwig fans and Yard fans are two completely different.
Yeah, they've shifted for sure. For sure.
That's when I asked about the parasocial aspect of like hanging out with, or viewers thinking that they hung out with you.
Yeah.
Nick said that the biggest issue, or the biggest thing that he noticed, was people would come up and be like, you know, I like you a lot. I don't like Ludwig at all. Or I don't like Slime at all, but I like you. And he was just like, you're talking shit about my friends. Like I don't like you now. Like
you don't like that guy. I like that guy.
Like, I don't care if you don't
need to prove anything to me right now. I like that guy, and that's why I do the show with him.
Right. It's such a funny. It's such a funny aspect. And now, having switched from events, you're back to merchandise, even though not back. You never stopped merchandise. Mm-hmm. How do you have like a love for that?
Yeah. In like a simplistic way. I don't think I work on merchandise because I'm particularly passionate about it. It's more like, this is something that is pretty fun to do, that is fairly easy to manage with like within what skill sets I have, that I'm very happy to work on for my friend, for the money and like space that it takes up in my life.
Yeah.
Like it's a very like, it's like a computation. It's like, this is how much work I have to put into this to do this well. Yeah. I work in a company environment that is like very nice. I get to work for my friend and reward his company rather than like some company or guy I don't know or don't have a personal connection to. And it pays me pretty well, and it only requires this much time out of like each day. It's like, so this is why it's worth it to do. And if any of those things changed, then I would like rethink what sort of place it has in my life.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense. And then the last question I have for you before Matt usually closes us off with whatever questions he has in his mind. So he's thinking of some. Look at him. Look at his face and how he's thinking so hard. So we used to have a title sponsor for the show, which was great. It helped get the show off the ground. Yeah. It was what I basically used to fund because I wanted to bring people. In Optic podcasts, we have a tendency to just put Optic people on, and I wanted to talk to everybody. You know, I want to talk to different people. So I used all the money to build the set and to fund people to come here. And now we're funding it on our own, and we're doing it through Patreon. That's awesome. Literally just this week doing it. So I was wondering if you had any advice for me or anybody, any other creator out there that might be as the number one public Patreon page in the yard. Yeah. What do you think it separates you guys from the rest, and what's the success, or what's the secret?
The main thing is I think we provide way more through our Patreon than the average podcast did on Patreon, especially at the time of when we launched. So if you look at like some of the successful podcasts, or like some of the podcasts that have kind of come in our wake, Fear And, for instance, you'll notice that their Patreon looks oddly similar to ours.
Wait, okay.
But it's just it's the main model of success. I just love sticking it to Fear And.
Yeah, it's funny.
The main thing I think is there's a base like core value proposition, which is like, hey, if you really like this show, you get an extra episode.
Yeah.
That wasn't really novel. I would say like a decent amount of people did that already. But the other thing you get is like access to our Discord server. And we communicate and use that Discord server pretty frequently. Besides Ludwig, the three of us chat and use that Discord server like pretty often. And it's like built out in a way that I think it's worth spending time in for a lot of people. Like a lot of those people have like friends they've made through the Discord server. There's like trivia nights and game nights that people participate in. There's like a community of people that has developed within that space that gets an opportunity to interact with the people on their favorite show. That's like worthwhile to be a part of, basically. So that's like our lowest tier offering. And then I think like it's like if you want even more, we added in like a couple more bonus shows that we do that we like doing. That like other podcasts don't really do, like double bonus shows. We're doing 3 shows basically every week. No, 4. So like main episode, bonus episode, and then 2 other bonus shows for like a higher tier.
Right.
And then we do merch discounts and these postcards. The postcards have been finicky, I'm not gonna lie. So your listeners listening to this, I know we fucked it up.
Is it like a meme?
It's a bit of a meme that we fucked it up. But we eventually get the postcards to people.
Right.
But the other thing that comes with the tier 3 is we do merch a lot, and we spend a lot of time on our merch.
Yeah.
And the tier 3 benefit comes with a big merch discount and early access. So you get like 25% off your whole order.
Wow.
Which for like, if you're buying like $100 to $200 worth of stuff is like a good chunk of money off your order.
Yeah.
And then you guarantee that you're able to get it in like the period because everybody else is like locked out for that bit.
Yeah.
I think those core offerings of like there's a lot extra of like what you like if you want it.
Right.
Which is the base thing that I think a lot of people don't do. And then the community and like sense of access to us. Because I do think that's like capitalizing on like some parasocial idea to some degree. But the idea of like it's like if you were a really diehard Rogan listener and then you could like go DM Joe Rogan on Discord and like he responded to you. And it's like, I'm not responding to like all my DMs, but I do respond to people in the server.
Yeah.
And I think that matters a lot to people.
Yeah, for sure. Well, there's the secret sauce. Are you ready, Matt? Are you ready to?
Yeah. I got one. Sure.
Oh, okay.
So I was also planning on being a doctor at some point in my life. Did you ever think about going back? Like, was there a point that you thought about going back to school and trying to like get into school for that?
Yeah. I more recently. I wouldn't say.
Don't say that. He's trying to leave. He's trying to leave us. Thank you.
Thank you.
AC, make one for yourself, man.
More.
Make one for yourself and Matt. Okay. Okay, yeah, make a plastic cup one. Matt wants one too. Because he's trying to leave us to be a doctor. I don't know if you heard this.
Yeah,
and Aiden's convincing him to do it.
I mean, if you left Optic Gaming to be a doctor, that'd be pretty swag.
No, it wouldn't be swag. It wouldn't be swag at all. It would not be swag.
There's just no chance you're making anesthesiology money at Optic Gaming. You know?
Stop! What are you doing?
What? I'm just saying. You got any anesthesiologists around here?
Yeah, not yet.
But I did consider it. I think the main reason I've been thinking about it is because as the passion for events has kind of like waned in the last couple years, and like I said, I'm not particularly passionate about doing merchandise. I'm doing the podcast, which I'm very lucky. It's like I'm basically sitting down every week and some to talk to my friends.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. Like I really appreciate that. And if I made no money doing it, I would probably keep doing it. I was thinking about that a lot recently.
Yeah.
But that being said, it's like because there's no like fire in my life like there was when I was doing those events, it makes you think about like, well, do I need to like refresh and like reapproach like what I want to do with like the decades left in my life? Because we probably won't be doing the yard 20 years from now, or maybe even 10 years or 5 years from now. Who knows?
Just curious.
Yeah, interesting.
Question.
Out of all, you've been listening to every yard episode ever. Out of all the questions, you could have fucking.
Look, if you quit to pursue medical school, I'll stand with you. He might turn his back on you.
I hate this.
All right, then I had one more question, and it was, have you checked the value of the? Do you still have the CS:GO knife?
Yeah.
Have you checked the value of it? Was that a good decision? You think?
I held too long. It's down.
Damn.
It is bad. It's because we're coming up on the year mark, which is I think I made the bet with them. I think I made a bet with them for I want to say it's like $500 that I would be up in a year on the knife.
Oh no.
And I bought the knife. Do you know the story of how I bought the knife? Yeah. Like I sold the car and shit?
You sold your car, bought a CS:GO knife for
I bought,
what, 11 grand?
I bought the knife at $14K. And the knife peaked at 20. Mm-hmm. And the knife is now worth like 12,800. Damn. So I'm technically down like just over $1,000 at the moment.
It's because CS2. It's because CS2 bombed.
Yeah.
If CS2
they
didn't
just released a bunch of stuff like today though for CS2.
They did. Yeah. I'm pretty confident that like given CS's history and like Valve's history for fixing the game, because they fixed global offensive. Like it just took a bit.
Yeah. That's what I heard.
I think it'll come back around, but I think the unfortunate timing of like I don't think it's going to come around by the year deadline of the bet.
The time you need it.
So you're going to be down $500.
Yeah, I'm going to be down $500. But I've been playing a lot of CS, and my knife is fucking. It looks great.
There you go.
Yeah. So who's the real? Aesthetically, I'm killing.
Do you have a car?
Yeah, and I have a car.
Okay, well
to
then,
be clear,
there you're
it was a little dramatic. I sold my old used car that I had it sitting in the driveway for a few months unused because I
drive a Tesla.
I bought a new car. I don't drive a Tesla. I drive a GTI.
A what?
Volkswagen GTI.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a fun car. Always wanted a GTI, so I bought a GTI, and then I couldn't sell my old car because it had all Washington paperwork still, and I had to get a bunch of stuff in California to sell it. And then I was like, when I finally got that done, I was like, how funny would it be if I did the opposite of what our friend did, which is we had a friend who cracked a butterfly knife a few years ago, and he sold the knife and bought a car. I was like, what if I sold my car and I bought the knife I wanted?
And that's what you did.
And I got there. So
such a good.
But
story.
I'm definitely gonna lose the bet. I'm definitely gonna lose.
Yeah, unless this update that just came out is amazing. Mm-hmm. Everyone goes back, but
we'll see.
All right. Well, to close it off, how would you wrap up Smash? Smash as a game,
like the whole thing.
Like the whole thing.
Well. Gave us a chance to be somebody.
It gave us a chance.
He's so right. He's just so good.
Yeah. So I guess what is there anything you got going on? Like I said, I'd love to come through, smash you guys in basketball whenever you're ready.
Right.
Optic
in softball maybe.
Optic, the Yard or whoever. Optic versus Nick Yingling in basketball. We're ready. We're ready whenever.
Okay. This is good to know. You need to fly the squad out to LA and face us.
Yeah, absolutely. We will definitely do that. But we're about to do Behind the Bar. We're about to play some beer pong and answer uncomfortable questions while we also play beer pong. Are you tipsy at all?
I'm like tipsy.
Yeah, me too.
I'm definitely tipsy.
Me too, which is really pretty much the sweet spot.
Yeah.
Sweet spot.
This is ideal. This is definitely ideal.
Well, thank you again so much for coming on, and thanks for flying down here. This was a blast.
Of course, on my luxurious flight.
Yeah,
no
exactly.
less, so.
No, not as luxurious. That's luxurious on the way back, but
that's fine.
Because
you've got what you want.
Yeah, exactly. Now just send him back to play basketball and talk about Melee. All right. Anything else, Matt? You good?
I'm good.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man.
I really
Cheers.
appreciate it. Cheers.
Thank you. Guys, go watch Behind the Bar because we need you to.
Subscribe to the Patreon.
Yes.